Right there. I couldn't believe it. I got another thing.
It's good. It's good.
I couldn't believe it. I got another thing.
It's good. It's good.
I couldn't believe it. I got another thing. Reverb. Oh, okay, let me check on it. I think we took care of it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners to order. March 12, just after 9 a.m. And if we could get started with prayer and pledge. Pastor South is here to get us started. So thank you, sir.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, you are the author of life and the source of all truth. Help us live lives of generosity and integrity that are rooted in your love and guided by the values of the gospel. Grant that in this meeting, these individuals will bring the depth of their faith, the vigor of their discipleship, and clarity of vision only your Spirit can impart. As they gather today, they seek your wisdom and guidance. Protect them from self-interest and narrow agendas. Teach us humility and may us hunger for your will. Be with us in these discussions and guide our decisions so we always do what is right and just and serve worthily those who rely on us to focus the vision, set the agendas, and ensure the viability of this board. May our service bring you glory, you who are loving God and merciful Lord, now and forever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If you could please stand and join for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Ms. Cosby,
Here.
Mrs. Ebel,
Here.
Mr. Zylstra,
Here.
Mr. Bonham, Mr. Moss,
Here.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Here.
Mrs. Curran,
Here.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Here.
Mr. Belknap,
Here.
Mr. Bergman, and Mrs. Miedema.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have correspondence from Bob DeVries. Bob, welcome. We look forward to hearing what you have to share.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, commissioners. Thanks once again for putting me at the top of the agenda so I can head off to Lansing as soon as this is done. But I'm Bob DeVries. I work at GCSI. We've been the lobbying firm for Ottawa County for over 20 years, and it's a pleasure for me to get to come here once a quarter and tell you what's going on in Lansing and what we're working on for you. Since I was here last at the end of last year, a lot has happened politically, but not a lot has happened legislatively. And so, as you guys know, the partisan split in Lansing has been very close since this last election. It was 56 to 54, Democrats to Republicans prior to the November elections. In November, 2 of the Democratic members of the House were elected mayors of their respective hometowns. And since then, it's been at a 54 to 54 split in Lansing. Which has just kind of resulted in gridlock. There's not been a lot of bills passed. There's not been a ton going on. That situation will be resolved on April 16 when there are 2 special elections. They will fill those 2 reliably Democratic seats and go back to the 56 to 54 split. But there's not been a lot happening since then, in terms of at least bills being passed. Maybe the biggest thing that has happened so far is the governor gave her budget presentation in February. She's proposed a 5% increase in revenue sharing for the counties. One other interesting conversation that's happening wasn't in the governor's budget proposal, but the Prosecuting Attorneys Association is making a strong push this year for additional funding for prosecutors. It's been harder and harder to find people to fill those spots. it's a little bit interesting. When I got out of law school, like everybody wanted to be a prosecutor and it was so hard to get those jobs. Today, partially because of the state funded indigent defense plan, it's much more lucrative to be a defense attorney than it is to be a prosecuting attorney right now. And so there's a strong push to try to find some funding for the counties to be able to hire more and pay more for prosecuting attorneys to try to balance that out just a little bit. So that's one that we'll watch and report back to you. Two bills that were introduced since I was here last time that is concerning. I've been talking to administration about a little bit. Senate Bill 630 and 631, sponsored by a senator from Ann Arbor, kind of pokes a hole in the governmental immunity statutes. As you know, government is generally immune from lawsuits, except for in certain specific situations. But across the board, generally the individual employees of governmental institutions are immune. It's the county or the road commission or the sheriff's department or whatever the employing organization is that bears that ultimate liability. These bills poke a hole in that and would allow people to sue the individuals as well. Doesn't really allow for more opportunities for injured people to collect more money, but it would require the county to buy a lot more insurance. And so it's something that we're tracking. Not any movement there yet, but it's something that is concerning and we're talking about regularly. One of the things that is notable for the county, as you may recall, back in 2020, there was a Supreme Court decision in Michigan that changed the way tax foreclosures work. Prior to this decision, if a county would foreclose on a house because of a tax debt, they got to keep whatever money they received as part of the sale of that house. Since then, there has been a ruling that says you can only keep the amount that was owed via the tax debt. Everything else would be returned to the owner. There are two different lawsuits pending. They're going to be up in the Supreme Court this week to try to further clarify that. And one would be fairly concerning for the county. It's about whether or not this would be retroactive. So since 2020, the county would have to refund everything. If the plaintiff in this lawsuit wins, the county would be required to go back to anybody else that was aggrieved before that point and refund money, which could be pretty expensive for Ottawa County. Two other bills that we're tracking. The Revenue Sharing Trust Fund, which is a bill that you guys have supported, has passed the House and awaits action in the Senate. That takes a little bit of the decision out of the hands of the legislators about how much money to appropriate for revenue sharing on an annual basis, ties it to a certain percentage of tax dollars, so that when the economy is good, your money goes up. When the economy is not, it goes down a little bit, but at least you have a metric so you know exactly what you're going to be receiving from the state instead of just being a negotiated budget item each time. I would expect action on that bill in the Senate sometime this year. And then lastly, the one we've been playing defense on, it's still not moved, the septic code bills that would invalidate Ottawa County's septic code and create some sort of statewide septic code. Hasn't had a committee hearing yet. There is a new version of the bills out, which I've shared with the deputy administrator, and still we are not in support of it, but it has not moved. But that's the updates on all the things that I'm tracking and working on for you, but I would love to answer any questions that you have as well.
Thank you, Bob. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Commissioner Zylstra?
Thank you. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey.
Just on the retroactivity, I know this is probably a question for Cheryl, but what is our liability, if it goes back 2-3 years?
I don't know what the number would be, but
Okay.
every county was doing it one way before 2020, and there's a new way now. And so I have no idea how many foreclosures there would have been in that period, but I would assume that
Okay.
number is available somewhere.
Okay, I'll hold on to Cheryl on that one.
Thanks.
Commissioner Zylstra, I believe the number is in the packet. I think actually today Cheryl could probably reference what the foreclosures were. I think it might have been 23 or something. Yeah. Any other questions? Bob, always a pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Next up, we have public comment. It's an opportunity for the public to come and speak to the board. You'll have 3 minutes, and please direct your comments to the chair. And I believe we have a list. And first up,
Commissioner Rebecca Curran is first public comment.
welcome.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've been over here. Well, I wanted to come and make a public announcement that I will not be running for reelection for county commission. I have thrown my hat in the ring for the U.S. Senate race. I believe that America has always been a land where diverse people can come together and create a unique and wonderful bond, which allowed each American to live their life by their own conscience and without any interference from their government. That is no longer the case, and it deeply concerns me. As I look out over this nation, our state, and our county, we are more divided than ever. I believe that we as individuals have the ability to work together, to listen to one another, and to create solutions. Unfortunately, politics has become too political. So I believe that there are solutions, but they are within each and every one of us. I think that if we listen to one another and work towards compromise and towards finding the solutions to the problems, that we can disagree in harmony with while still respecting one another. We need to get back to the tenets that we learned in kindergarten. Don't call each other names. Go ahead, and your mom gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use your ears. Or God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That happened for a reason. We're to listen more than we speak. So with that, if you are interested, and I've got a large undertaking, I have to have 15,000 signatures and change to get on the ballot. I've got about 43 days to do that. If you're interested in helping me with that, and this message resonates at all with you, then please reach out to me. My email is rcurran, C-U-R-R-A-N, at Curran, F-O-R, Senate.com. Again, that's rcurran at curranforsenate.com. And I look forward to serving the great state of Michigan and bringing us all a little closer together.
Thank you.
Public comment number 2 is Adria Hill from Holland Township.
Good morning, Adria Hill, Holland Township. This week is Sunshine Week. No, it is not to celebrate the clearing of the skies as we approach spring, which I'm grateful for as well, but rather Sunshine Week is meant to shine a light on the importance of public records and open government. While typically it is journalists and the media accountability are the hallmarks of representational government in America. The cause of transparency in government has become important to me because over the last year, I have submitted a number of FOIA requests and have experienced firsthand the delay tactics, excessive fees, and significant redactions, which continue to prohibit access to public information. In short, transparency is not the default position of the county. Let me provide you with an example of my most recent denial. On February 24th, I submitted FOIA request for invoices submitted in 2024 by Common Legal Group to Ottawa County and the Insurance Authority. Per usual, I received a notice of extension because of extraordinary business conditions. And I have since received a denial due to non-existent records. I'm still waiting on Chairperson Moss's response to my appeal. However, in front of you today is an approval of the payment to Common Legal Group for $38,000. It is unclear how no invoices could exist, yet a payment is still expected. But transparency is more than just accessing documents. It is also access to public officials. It is also letting the public know when you have removed the opportunity to submit online public comments instead of quietly changing the website. It is about knowing what is on the agenda so that we can speak to the issues important to us, like perhaps candidates for the interim administrator. It is about the dangers of excessive secrecy. It is disappointing that the transparency resolution has not yet made it back onto the agenda. So I am asking for this board to make transparency a priority so that we, the people, are better informed about the workings of our government.
Thank you.
Public comment number 3 is Rebecca Patrick, Allendale Township.
Morning, Commissioners. Rebecca Patrick, Allendale. I'd like to speak to your agenda item concerning appointment of an interim administrator. I urge you to consider appointing an existing experienced employee of the county. And the reason I feel compelled to speak to this is that you, Mr. Moss, have indicated that your recommendation is John Anderson, who is filed to run for sheriff in the upcoming election. This recommendation is controversial for 3 reasons. First, it's controversial because Mr. Anderson's resume does not clearly show that he has applicable experience, and particularly county experience. Second, it's controversial because you have to overlook existing, experienced, highly qualified employees, in particular Ms. Karazinski and Mr. Sachs, in order to do this. And third, it is also controversial because you, Mr. Moss, have a personal political interest in giving Mr. Anderson increased visibility as we come into campaign season, making your recommendation to hire Mr. Anderson unethical, in my opinion. Then there's this other little side issue hanging out there, which isn't really my concern, but it should be yours, Mr. Moss. I sent you an email this weekend outlining these objections and asking you to consider recommending Ms. Karazinski or Mr. Sachs for the interim role. You responded by asking me why I didn't recommend Mr. Wetmore along with Ms. Karazinski and Mr. Sachs. Let's review. You're the one not recommending Mr. Wetmore. I'm not the decision maker here. You are. And you've clearly made a decision and sent a very public message that you prefer an untested, unknown person from the community ahead of any current staff member, including Mr. Wetmore. You have an opportunity here, Mr. Moss, to try to salvage some shred of public confidence or staff confidence in your judgment and leadership ability. People are truly tired of the dysfunction in the games. We want leaders who have the best interests of the county at heart, not people focused on party ideology at the expense of everything and everyone else. I urge you to reconsider your recommendation and choose an experienced existing employee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, comment number 4 is David Barnowski, Port Sheldon Township.
My name is David Barnowski and I vote in Port Sheldon Township. And nobody who pays attention to the meetings here is going to think I support your agenda to appoint an interim executive today. But it's kind of surprising. You have a group of votes that lock in behind you and support pretty much anything you do. We understand why I don't support you, but I don't understand why they do. Because even with looking at it from their point of view, you don't have a good record. It took you almost 3 years to learn that you can't just fire the public health department director just because you want to. You got that information in legal opinions in 2021, but you organized and you tried and you fought and you did all these things. You had your attorneys make false accusations in court. You did all kinds of crazy things to try to get that done. You manipulated, in my opinion, you manipulated the budget process to try to trick her into having some charges against her, and all of this time, and you still didn't get it done because it wasn't supposed to be that way. You're not supposed to be able to fire her that way for the reasons you wanted to. You hired someone with another quick fire like you did with John Gibbs. You don't do well with the way you hire. Why do they continue to support you? You don't have a good record. And if you're not a good leader and they continue to support you, I have to assume neither are any of them. So I'll just toss in this other side issue for your other followers. There's a new book out today. It's called Disproven. It's written by someone hired by Donald Trump in an attempt to go find all of the evidence of election errors, election fraud, and he came back and proved that there isn't any. Hired by Trump And the book came out today proving that there isn't any.
Thank you.
Public comment number 5 is Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township.
Good morning, Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township Chairman. I would advocate for a continued administrator vacancy rather than a hastily made appointment. I would advocate that rapid lane changes contribute to auto accidents. The same can be said for employment lane changes from want to be sheriff to administrator want to be. Consider a job sharing arrangement to bridge the gap until a decision is made on a fully vetted and qualified administrator. The combination of Ben Wetmore, Karen Karenzinski, and Paul Sachs would be preferred over a decision made in haste. Divide the workload and give portions to the skill set strengths of a team. We certainly do not need a repeat of a drinking from a fire hose selection choice. The professionalism and experience of Paul and Karen should not be discounted. I would advocate looking within the Ottawa County current employees that have years of proven capabilities. Before any vote, please have Human Resources Director Marcy Verbeek publicly speak and give summary on candidate recommendation. Did Human Resources post and receive applications? Did Human Resources check credentials and conduct background check? Did the Talent and Recruitment Committee meet to discuss applicants? Transparency should not be superseded by expediency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment number 6 is Harvey Nickel, Georgetown Township.
Thank you. I'm Harvey Nickel from Jenison. Thank you for keeping your promises and standing up for the citizens of Ottawa County. Thank you for doing the research to determine what strings are attached to the grants and how our tax dollars will be spent on the proposals that come before you. I support you and pray for you. I believe that John Anderson would be an excellent choice for the interim administrator. He has experience and excellent endorsements as an administrator in his career. I can't believe that the Holland Sentinel claims he has no experience as an administrator. However, I'm not surprised. They have called you far-right extremist and put anti-Ottawa impacts spin on every single article they've published for the last 14 months. They do not report the news. They just publish leftist opinion pieces. The problem is that the people who read these biased stories believe it is the news. The same is true for MLive in their recent survey, which they pushed out to every media outlet in Western Michigan. I don't answer phone calls with unknown numbers, so my positive responses about Ottawa Impact are not included in their survey. I don't think they have published one story about the Ottawa Board of Commissioners that was neutral and truthful. The biggest enemy of we the people who love freedom and the Constitution is the media. The media in this country is owned by the same 6 people or corporations. All media outlets are given the same talking points to feed to their readers or listeners so they can shape the narrative. It is essentially psychological warfare. If anyone does not know about Project Mockingbird or the modernization of the Smith-Mundt Act, please look them up. Essentially, we have been fed propaganda since 2013. The people who are orchestrating this have a lot of money, are eugenicists, and they want to destroy America so they can bring in their new world order under a one world government. They know that to destroy America, they must tear down the nuclear family, cause division and strife by pushing Marxist ideologies such as DEI, and remove God from society. As citizens who love God, love our families, love our freedoms, and love our country, we must wake up and speak out against this very vocal minority that is trying to destroy all that we hold dear. Thank you, commissioners, for taking all the slings and arrows that are being thrown at you. I believe that there are now 6 groups that have been organized specifically to discredit and tear down the Ottawa Impact Commissioners. That tells me you're right over the target. This is bigger than Ottawa County. The ruling oligarchs do not want to relinquish their power to the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the registered public comments we have.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Howdy, my name is Joe Spalding. I'm from Holland Township. I thought it was pretty tacky for a county commissioner to come up here and go in front of a line of people that were here to give public comment as citizens, but it's fine. If the chair could please enforce order in the audience, that'd be amazing. I also think that it's hilarious that Rebecca said the answers for all of our problems lie inside each one of us, because she is on video saying she performed a faith healing in a Best Buy and healed somebody's knee. And if that is actually true, I think that it's a dereliction of duty as a human being for her to be here and not standing outside of Holland Hospital performing faith healings for all the people that are sick coming in there. Could the chair please enforce order? Let me be irrevocably clear about what Ottawa Impact is in this county. Joe Moss and Ottawa Impact are not just a showcase of the danger and incompetence inseparable from the right-wing portion of the GOP. They have completely proven Ottawa County, for better or worse, can no longer just count on fiscally conservative Republicans in local government who also look after marginalized in our community. Instead, we must carefully vet Republicans who are running to screen out the impulsiveness and vindictiveness, which we as a community now know defines Joe Moss, Sylvia Rhodey, Gretchen Cosby, Rebecca Curran, and Lucy Ebel, who we have a chance to replace on May 7th with a socially and fiscally responsible leader who happens to caucus with the Democratic Party. His name is Christian Kleinjans. We're past the point of most Ottawa County voters simply re-examining the idea of consistently voting straight Republican on election day. And progressives and other Democrats are far from feeling helpless like they did when only a couple of thousand of them showed up to vote in 2012. Again, for better or worse, the backlash against Trumpism and Trump himself are more pronounced in this community the longer his prior supporters have to realize that he truly is a terrible human being who absolutely cheated on multiple wives, including an adult film star we paid 6 figures of hush money to. Deal with it. He sexually assaulted women, which is legally confirmed. This is not a man that is fit to lead in our country. If you believe this is a Christian nation, I'll disagree with you about that. But if you were correct, Trump and Trumpism would have even less of a home here. Instead, we have a local government that signifies everything about Trump at the local level, down to the kickbacks and lawyers and consultants, roll your eyes, Ben, running away rich on the sweat and labor of taxpayers and campaign donors. If there's one silver lining to the cloud that has hovered over our county for the last 14 months, it's that fiscally and ethically responsible Democrats in Ottawa County will no longer necessarily be overlooked on election day, and scoundrels who call themselves Republicans will finally be scrutinized at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hey, Lori Grassman, Robinson Township. Joe, I'm going to agree with, truth does hurt. So I would like to show that he likes to portray that Trump is losing here in Ottawa County, where in actuality, in the past 3 presidential primaries that he has been in, he has raised his total every single time. And in this Chairman Joe's district alone, the total of vote up Trump went was almost 1,000 in 2024. And that's just Joe's district. And I like that Spalding also on his Twitter page tried to encourage the Democrat narrative by saying in 2012, 2,000 Democrats voted. And then he compared it to 2024, where there was 15,000 Democrats that voted. Well, he conveniently left out the 2 presidential primaries in the middle, where there was 35,000 and 24,000. So Democrat support is actually going down here in Ottawa County. But then it's crazy because he also, when he tries to prove the truth, he uses unofficial results. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Deb Isaac, Port Sheldon Township. I think I'll just rein it into the county commissioners. Chair Joe Moss has taken to recapping the public comments at the end of the board meetings. I find it interesting that you preface your remarks with a list of what you term bashings and include name calling and perceived accusations. However, you sure didn't summarize your remarks or those of other Ottawa Impact Commissioners as bashing when the public shaming of Adeline Hamley or Lisa Ugansky took place under the guise of questioning, or the epitome of name-calling from Commissioner Rhodey when she accused those who attended Pride Fest, me included, as sexual groomers. And most recently, Commissioner Belknap pouting behind his laptop advertisement planned as, quote, a direct result of Reverend Kramer giving the invocation. That's not considered character bashing? I certainly am not fooled by this subtle attempt by the OI board to feel victimized. For over 14 months, we've endured condescending and dismissive behaviors shown to non-OI commissioners and county employees. Commissioner Rhodey wanted less drama in 2024. Good grief. There's been more drama in the first 8 weeks of the new year, let alone what lies ahead. As if on cue, with an election year looming, Chair Moss decides to play nice with a weak attempt to Commissioner Bergman for some guidance on how to address replacing the just fired county administrator. Only time will tell how much the chair really values the opinion of a commissioner with the experience and wisdom so lacking by the board majority. Imagine my surprise, but not really, when I recently visited the county website and learned on the BOC page that the only way to make public comment now is by attending in person. But I did discover a video called The Ottawa Way before that too is removed. It was a refreshing reminder that once upon a time, I trusted the Republican commissioners to run a thriving and welcoming community, and I'm a Democrat. Here are a few takeaways from that video. In Ottawa County, we treat residents and coworkers with integrity and respect, a place where healthy living is valued and available, a place where diversity is not just talked about, a place where government spends within its means, a government that strives to protect the health, safety, independence, and economic well-being of all citizens, and the best, an organization where the values of mutual respect and trust abound. In closing, I'll leave you with a March 10 comment from our chair. Now is the time to come together so the county can focus on working for the people and choosing a long-term county administrator. I think you're a bit late to the party.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
David Moore in Allendale Township. First of all, I want to remind everybody, you should be rejoicing and be exceedingly glad for the same kind of comments and attacks were done to the one that you serve, your Savior, the one who hung on the cross. Don't ever forget that. Second of all, I want you to know that after my comments a couple days ago, your employees came out and were very respectful and professional. Showed up, I think, 2 days later. I was impressed. Did a wonderful job, and I appreciate that. I still meant what I said. I look at the consent agenda, and I'm a little concerned by items D, E, and F. I went to the Planning Commission and spoke my opinion on bicycle paths, spending money on things that what percentage of the community uses. If you approve this consent agenda as written, you are supporting stealing land from people that don't want it, promoting people to walk in neighborhoods that the neighborhoods do not necessarily want them walking in. When I grew up, if I wanted to go for a walk, I went for a walk down the road or walked on my land. I never expect the government to provide me with a nice smooth path for me to walk on. I never expected the government to provide me with a path or a place to take my dog so I could take him for a walk. This has gotten way out of hand. What percentage of the people of Ottawa County actually use these things? You don't even know. They can say they had 200,000 visitors, but were they all the same people? What percentage was it? And what about the rest of us? Do I get a right to come here and say, I want a place to plow my ground and plant crops? So you're going to go and take land away from people in town so that I can do that? Is that how it works? No, but you have no problem taking farmland away so they can walk on it. You have no problem setting up regulations so that they can't have animals too close to people that are living within the boundaries.
Yeah, there's setback requirements. I got problems with that. And then on to the next thing. In the past, Ottawa County is pretty much promoted from within. And we could go right down the list, and usually elected officials will retire or resign 6 months before the end of their term so that they can get their assistant or their desired candidate into the temporary position. So they had the leg up at the next election. Yeah, I've been paying attention. There should be something better. And while one of your in-house candidates I have nothing but respect for, the other one I have big concerns about. When I look at the department that they run and the purpose of that department and what that department's doing, as I said before, on one hand, you're taking farmers' land and paying them for development rights. On the other hand, you're building housing for low income. So you're raising the price of the land and you're taking taxpayer money to pay for it. On that hand and this hand. Things are way out of line. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good morning, Karen Obit, Spring Lake. And as someone else said, happy Sunshine Week. And as another commenter said, they did not get called or didn't answer a call from an unknown number, so didn't get a chance to answer the MLive survey. So as I also did not get a chance, this is my attempt to do so. My biggest concern about what I have seen in the past 14 months from this board has everything to do with the lack of transparency and questionable due process. So with the idea of Happy Sunshine Week in my brain, I'm thinking how much more important it is to me that I understand not just that the sausage was made and what that sausage was when I read media accounts or attend the meeting myself, because I've come prepared by reading the agenda. I know what's supposed to be on it. So it's how the sausage is made. That's important too. Why is the agenda for the appointment of the interim administrator not listing the names of the people which the chairman did announce on his social media page? I am really concerned about the fact that we don't know how decisions are being made before we even get to the meeting. And so I want to calm everybody's partisan spirit down here and saying it helps all of us when we understand what our leaders are doing. Whatever we might think about their agenda, we need to understand how they've done it so that we can call it to account when it hasn't followed good governance practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Hello, my name is Dina Arner. I vote in Holland Township. And seeing as one of the big decisions to be made today has to do with the interim administrator, I would have liked to speak about how you come to that decision. But over the last 14 months, I have learned that the input of a large segment of the population of this county is not welcome, that the board will make the decisions they will make regardless of the input of the citizens that do not slavishly back them and kiss their feet. They will continue to make decisions not based on competence or merit or even ability of the candidate to meet the requirements of the job. They will continue to make hiring decisions based on vindictiveness, based on ideology, based on their narrow political concerns instead of what is best for the county. So instead, I will use my time to ask why we are not allocating money for the Ottawa Foods Coordinator. I know that all of you Ottawa Impact commissioners ran on a platform that was explicitly Christian, and you held up your Christian beliefs as a reason why you were superior candidates to anyone else. And I would encourage you to go back and read the most important book for your religion, the Bible, and see what it has to say about feeding the hungry. It certainly has a lot more to say about feeding the hungry than it does, say, drag races or grooming or any of the other topics that you find so very important, so very much more important than making sure that every child in Ottawa County, every citizen in Ottawa County has the ability to access the food they need to survive. Maybe you need to take another look at your professed beliefs and see how they do or do not, in this case, line up with your actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good morning. I'm Melanie Skolton from Park Township. The following are excerpts from an opinion piece written by John Eichart, President of the Michigan Press Association, in recognition of Sunshine Week. For the past 10 years, the Michigan Press Association has given a Memorial Sunshine Award to public servants that strive to promote and protect transparency in government. This year, we are sad to report that there are no Sunshine Awards being given. Government transparency is essential to maintaining the public's trust and ensuring accountability. Transparency allows citizens to understand how their government operates, how their tax dollars are being spent, and how decisions are made on their behalf. Government transparency is not just a matter of ethics, but also of efficiency and effectiveness. When government officials operate in secrecy, it becomes more difficult for citizens to participate in the decision-making process and provide valuable input. Transparency allows for greater collaboration between government and the public, leading to better policies and outcomes for all. Another journalist, Ken Paulson of the Free Speech Center, asks, how can we best prevent abuse by those in power? Demand that the public's business be done in public. Support local news media so they can be the watchdogs we need. Don't settle for pandering and easy answers from those on the public payroll. I want to point out that Mr. Eichart uses the word how here and not the word what. Transparency is more than just which decisions have been made. Transparency is allowing the public to see how they are being made, the process, and not just the result, similar to what Karen mentioned earlier. Mr. Paulson references the media. Transparency includes talking to the media, any media who ask, and quoting yourself on your own website does not count. Transparency also includes providing an agenda in a timely fashion, and making last-minute changes should be the exception rather than the rule. Michigan sunshine laws are clearly outdated, and we have this board to thank for finding several of the loopholes that need to be closed. For the past 50 years, our commissioners had the integrity to follow the spirit of the law, but it's clear now that we can no longer rely on that. The agenda item for the interim county administrator is a perfect example of the lack of transparency by this board. Unless I missed it, this agenda item is only that, an agenda item. There were no names listed in the packet, no resumes attached. No information was sent out to the public via official channels. The public is left to guess, Google, and come to our own conclusions. After seeing information trickled out through other sources, I would like for this board to discuss publicly. Oh, rats. I urge you to just consider the people who have worked here for a long time and have a lot of experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good morning, Luke Sanner, Park Township. First thing I wanted to talk about the appointment of an interim candidate for administrator. Generally, interims are a placeholder, a caretaker, someone to keep the ship on course until the new captain is named. I don't see how an external candidate does that. John Anderson's experience with the county, at least on his own LinkedIn page, seems to be limited to some time as some sort of probation officer. Meanwhile, we have two long-term candidates on the list of possible people that just seemed like they'd be in a better position to hit the ground running on day one. Related to that, and I think worthy of being read into the record, so to speak, Jacob Bonema, County Commissioner, District 4's Facebook page from a couple hours ago. Just like the last time Ottawa County leadership made a surprise decision on its most important responsibility, I happen to be out of the country. And just as before, I will not be in attendance to vote for an interim administrator during today's proceedings. None of the names who applied for interim administrator were presented to the Talent and Recruitment Committee, of which I am a member. The board didn't even know who applied until 4:54 PM on Friday. I have numerous questions that I would like to ask the candidates. It is unacceptable to receive such significant information late on a Friday afternoon and then be expected to vote on it the following Tuesday. Rushed decisions often lead to poor outcomes. Fools plunge ahead with reckless confidence. I urge my fellow colleagues to adhere to good hiring practices by requesting resumes to be sent to Human Resources for proper vetting and consideration by the Talent and Recruitment Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good morning. I'm Christy Moplink from Zealand Township. Commissioners, it's been quite a journey. In rewatching your very first meeting in 2023, where you voted to remove the existing legal counsel in favor of a constitutional attorney, it was clear that the goal had been to put a new legal counsel in place before you took over. They failed at that objective, and you've been under attack ever since. Ironically, at that meeting, it became clear that Silver and Vanessen Law Firm had a contract in place from 2017, signed by Doug Vanessen. Yet the claim was made that the legal counsel was only with Doug directly, which caused confusion about billing arrangements that still haven't been cleared up. What was going on? Why didn't the media investigate that? In addition, Vanessen, and as a result, Ottawa County later was sanctioned over a frivolous opioid lawsuit where the judge said Vanessen lied, yet the media has ignored the issues that existed involving the prior legal counsel and actions of that board. Meanwhile, you've been hit by constant lawfare, along with a never-ending stream of FOIA requests. The media attacks you relentlessly, calling you and your supporters by inflammatory names without presenting full facts from various perspectives and never allowing the reader to make their own informed decision. The Holland Sentinel wrote 206 articles about, or should I say against, Ottawa Impact in 2023 alone, and at least 47 already this year. Why the vendetta? Why aren't reporters or armchair critics going back to see what slipped through under the rubber stamping days of the lockstep prior board, administration, and council, where taxpayer funds were tossed around like a never-ending bucket of parade candy, with a parting gift of spending the ARPA funds and hiring a new health director on their way out the door? The Sentinel and other sources have managed to find a way to smear every action step you have worked on implementing, going so far as to undermine the qualifications of John Anderson for the role of interim county administrator, as they did with Nate Kelly, by stating details in a way that their fans can use the narrative to their advantage to try to turn people against them. The media is a pro at spreading half-truths and twisted information, which is parroted by those who hate all you are doing here in Ottawa County, as was evident in comments this morning. Many people understand what's actually taking place here, and on behalf of those people, I'm here to say thank you for all you are doing. Stand strong in your faith and convictions to put God and the Constitution back in order in Ottawa County. Defend freedom, protect children, preserve American values. You are placed here by God and by the people. We are praying for you. We support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Morning, Chairman. I'm Brandon Land. I'm from Grand Haven, Michigan. Members of the board, attendees, I have 2 minutes, 50 seconds to get through this. Today is the honorable memorial of David M. Collins, a Navy chief who died in combat in defense of this nation, Navy SEAL. I left this nation after graduating in 1999. From Grand Haven High School, I joined the Navy and did 21 years. 17 of that was spent in Naval Special Operations in the SEAL teams. Spent 15 years of that in Joint Special Operations Command. And I've come back here to find peace in a community I thought I'd find it in post-COVID. After retiring in 2020, I finished my MBA at Brown University. I have come back to Grand Haven and found, wow, Ottawa County is not the Ottawa County I left. I have never seen a more diverse but divisive community in my life. And I do not think it's part of your committee's problem. I think it's part of the media's problem. I think it's been driven by reading. I've lived abroad. I've lived in California, Japan, 121 countries visited, and I've never seen this much crazy. I attended Brown. I attended George Washington. I attended Georgetown. I have seen the liberal agenda pushed at our nation's capital. Ms. Curran, if you take that Senate seat, please push hard. people stand behind you. I stand behind you, and I've come today asked by my cousin to take a stand. I tried to remain out of the silent spotlight of media and the government, and here I am shaken by what I've heard. From the push of neo-Marxism, it's not about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and us hating citizens or us hating children. It's pushing an agenda of what's right and wrong. It's black and white. Sometimes we have to find the shades of gray as society and our members to get that done for our children, for the next generation, and whatever. And we're left in the quagmire of a mess from our predecessors. It happens. And I thank you for what I've seen and been able to read in the short time I've been home here in Ottawa County, for what you're committed to doing and the voices you're hearing and taking today, and the ability to speak among you. I just ask everyone to take a pause, take a pregnant pause for a second, and just think what's right and what's wrong. Because rushing to success will lead to Bathsheba syndrome, and I won't go down some political stunted policy, big word salad agenda here. What I implore you to do is just use your due diligence and due care of the appointments you have in your seat, because my children, your children, the future of this county, the future of the state of Michigan depend on you and the success of our nation. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your service. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Seeing none, there is a second public comment opportunity towards the end of the meeting. Moving on, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
A motion and support. Any discussion? All in favor of approving today's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next up, we have our consent resolutions. I get a motion to approve the consent resolutions, please.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Zylstra.
ask to remove D through K, please.
D through K. We will remove items D through K and move those to the end of our action items. Anything else? All right, all in favor of approving the new consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That
Nay.
That motion carried. Okay. Moving on, we are up to the agenda and action requests. 8A is the beach water monitoring grant. The suggested motion is to approve a contract with the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy for beach water monitoring. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Is there any discussion on 8A? I'll just say thank you, Commissioner Cosby, for making sure we got this one to the board. And could we please go to the clerk for the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, 8B is scrap tire cleanup grant agreement from Eagle. A suggested motion is to approve and sign the scrap tire cleanup grant from the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and support. Any discussion on 8B? Again, this looks like a renewal. Thanks for making sure it got to the board. If there's no discussion, then we'll just go to the clerk for the roll.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up, 8C, appointment of interim county administrator. I want to thank board members for investing time to reach out to potential candidates to consider how to move forward regarding the interim role. I want to reiterate some of the information that I sent the board prior, much of which was communicated by board members, but also staff and others. But I think helpful for the people to hear as well. So people have expressed exactly who they think should be appointed. The interim leader should be appointed quickly to fill the gap. The interim leader should be someone with experience in county level government. The interim leader should demonstrate proven leadership qualities and teamwork. The interim leader should have strong budgetary and strategic planning skills. The interim leader should understand the board and the county vision statement. Adjectives often used were friendly, firm, confident, trustworthy, honest, and kind, and many others. And several people expressed a desire for someone who will prioritize supporting staff and building relationships. Long-term, the board will develop a search process for a permanent administrator. Commissioner Bergman has shared the process that was used in the past. It was very collaborative, very specific. And so I'll recommend a similar process and search committee. And we'll likely begin by updating the job description and presenting it to the board for approval. Short term, we need to fill the interim position. Since last Thursday, many names have been recommended by board members, by the public. And I just want to make it clear, commissioners can advocate and support and vote for anyone that they wish. We have respected staff members who are willing to serve. We have Deputy Administrator Ben Wetmore, Fiscal Services Director Karen Karazinski, Director of Strategic Impact Paul Sachs. We also have an external candidate willing to serve, John Anderson. I thank all of the people who have indicated their willingness. I've defended you all over the last few days via email. And so I'd like to open it up for discussion and comments. And we'll go to Commissioner Miedema.
Thank you, Chair Moss. First, I just want to start off with saying I have the utmost respect for current staff members and the work they are doing in the county and the willingness to even be considered for an interim role. I also recognize the desire from some to put Karen in the role of administrator, and I hope she's been encouraged by the positive feedback that has come her way. I personally feel that due to the current political atmosphere within parts of the county and government, largely attributed to an ongoing false narrative of media all working in tandem together, it is in the best interest to have a non-current staff member come in from the outside to fill this interim role of county administrator. I also desire to protect the positions and staff relationships that Karen, Paul, and Ben all currently fill in the county. And by leaving them in these positions, their work can flow uninterrupted, which in turn benefits the people of the county. When speaking with some elected officials within my own district and District 11, who have seasoned experience in government, I have received similar feedback. The elected officials I have spoken to shared their thoughts on the importance of having an outside person hired as an interim. I also have heard nothing but positives about John Anderson, from his references, from past and current coworkers, and from random conversations with people who have known him for some time. And I want to, while all the board has the reference notes from the phone calls that I placed on March 8th, I would like to read them out loud so the public can also hear them. I first called Lincoln Miller, who is a current sales manager for John's Gun Store, Bullet Hole Firearms, and he's a retired MSP trooper. Lincoln shared that he's worked for John for 2 years at Bullet Hole Firearms. While being a trooper for 31 years, mostly road patrol, Lincoln worked for many captains. Lincoln shared that many of these captains were what he called managers, some good, some bad, but mostly good. However, there were few and far between that were leaders. He shared that John is a born leader. He's not a manager, but a leader, and Lincoln recognized that early on in coming to work with him. He commented about John's ability to listen, to take on tasks versus ordering them to simply be done, and by leading by example. Lincoln shared that John takes ideas from others well, that he has the ability to make instant decisions, but also knows the time to spend researching before coming to an answer. Lincoln continued that he's highly trustworthy, and in law enforcement terms, Lincoln shared that he would not hesitate to go through a door with him. And then I called Ed Moore, retired sheriff sergeant, cold case homicide supervisor, and he's currently Livingston's from the Livingston Sheriff's Department in Michigan. Ed and John met in 2015 to 2016 in Livingston County, Michigan, and worked cold cases for 3 to 4 years together. They still keep in touch on a fairly regular basis. When John was brought in to work by Sheriff Mike Murphy, the background check done on him on his service in California had nothing but good recommendations from coworkers and supervisors in California. John got along very well with the entire cold case team as well as with regular members of the sheriff's team. Ed shared that John has lots of experience and connections with Grand Traverse and the city department as well, that John is a go-getter and enjoys having his hands in a variety of things. He shared that he's respected by everyone he knows, that he's an upbeat person. In fact, he shared that he'd never seen him in a down state. And also commented about John's being highly trustworthy. And then the third person that I called was John Hill, a retired sheriff's chief from Riverside Sheriff's Department in California. John shared about John Anderson, that they've known each other since the mid-90s as they worked together in the Moreno Valley as lieutenants. He commented about John's being very responsible and was given a very impressive position with a technical background in fingerprinting and work with an election ID system. John went on to share that this was not a position that anyone would be put into, that you have to have a certain aptitude for it. He shared that John's super smart and very detail-oriented and has the ability to go in and learn quickly. He talked about his experience working with government grants, operating budgets, and lots of technical experience. He was not aware of any conflict where John had ever been on the job and commented that he gets along with pretty much everyone. They keep in touch with one another on a regular basis and shared how that he's good at reaching out for help when it's needed and he's a good communicator. Went on to share that he's a good networker, an emotionally grounded person. And he also went to share that it's not uncommon for sheriffs to be called to lead a county in a manager role as an interim or longer position. And he felt one reason for that was due to their leadership experience and good reputation. He ended with saying that he's had experience working with large numbers of people and overseeing and working with county staff. So I just wanted to read the references so that everyone was aware of that. And then for me, he also stands out to me for his experience with his proven leadership, being highly respected in law enforcement with a history of admin leadership and a command in county 8 times larger than Ottawa. I personally have found John to be relational, confident, calm, professional, and a good communicator. I spent an hour last week asking many questions of him over a phone call and also spent time, as I mentioned, calling several references of his. Just other things to highlight with his 30-year career in law enforcement, including 10 years in administrative leadership. This is not John's first interim role experience. John was called to be an interim role during his work at Spectrum Health in Grand Rapids as the manager of security and police operations for their entire organization of 300 people. While he didn't take the offer, John was offered full-time work there as a result of his interim role. High problem-solving skills were mentioned as a strength by John, John's references and by himself. He mentioned using the SARA model, the scanning, analysis, response, and assessment. He has 5 years experience preparing and managing budgets of $25 million and maintaining them with 7 different funding sources. He has experience with writing and managing grants. He's familiar with the RFP bid process, with strategic planning. He has experience in supervising HR functions and conducting hiring. Experience in working with county boards and commissions, and enjoys working with people and desires to build connections with county employees and the board, and he prefers face-to-face interactions whenever possible. I realize that there are varying opinions, thoughts, and desires from a variety of people, and I hope that whoever is selected today will receive encouragement and support going forward. I also look forward to taking the time needed to put forth a search team and process for a full-time county administrator and going through that process. I believe, as you've heard me say today, that John would be the best candidate for the interim role, and I will be voting for him. And I hope my fellow board members will as well.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add to the discussion? Commissioner Cosby.
So I just wanted to share that I spent yesterday approximately 4 hours in conversations with and interviewing interested candidates. I went through a series of questions. They were the same questions about the work of the county administrator as I see it's going to be in the next 9 months. We are very fortunate to have some incredibly qualified candidates and very committed to Ottawa County. Some of the things that I asked about, there were really 3 questions, and the first was relationship building and trust, given the circumstances and what their experience had been doing that in the past or currently. Also talked about strategic planning and had they ever participated in strategic planning process, looking at administration as the hub and then the different departments as the spokes and how they work together in that wheel. And then I also talked about the budgeting process and their experience in budgeting. And we are in that season right now, or very close, and whether or not the candidates had experience leading multiple departments through this process. So I hope that that appears to be more transparent than what people maybe feel in the audience right now, as far as time that was spent. And I really did enjoy having an opportunity to learn more about each one of the individuals. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Zylstra.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go first.
Commissioner Zylstra, go.
You're the Senate candidate.
Commissioner Zylstra, go ahead.
All right, go. So, something that I was not aware of prior to Friday was the fact that we were looking at external candidates. I think, what Jacob said makes sense to me. I would have preferred that if we were going to go down that route, that would have made that known to folks, and maybe that was known to folks, but wasn't known to me at least. I think we have a number of people in this community who, could have applied and should have applied, and I think would make great candidates. We have Amanda Price, who has a lot of institutional knowledge, who's not a current staff member. Having said that, I appreciate the individuals, who have stepped up, all 4 of them. And Chair Moss read the list of qualities that we're looking for, and I agree with, all of them, right? I think one item there that's missing is someone with current financial and organizational knowledge, right? And I did talk to John. I don't know if he's here, but I did appreciate our conversation. But, John does not have current financial and organizational knowledge, right? This is a big organization. For me, Karen Karazinski has that knowledge. I think that on a short-term basis, she'd make a great interim. I understand the concern about not wanting to pull someone off their current duties. I think one of the benefits of Karen's position is that we have added a budget manager last fall. So that department, is well-resourced. Part of the reason why we added a budget manager was, to give Karen more flexibility, more ability to, do at a higher level operation. So I think she is in a unique situation where she has the departmental resources to take on this role, has the, current financial and organizational knowledge of Ottawa County to really put that to work. So I'll be voting for Karen.
Thank you. Commissioner Curran.
Thank you. So I came into this with an open mind and looking at both of the candidates that kind of were at the top of my list, which would be Karen and John. I see both sides of why people want those individuals. I think that Karen offers a lot of stability in the sense that she's been here, where John is not been in the county, so people don't know him. He's an unproven commodity for these folks. I went back and forth on several conversations with Joe as well, and we sparred. And we both kind of, I still think that I felt like I heard a really good public commenter, and I wanted to kind of discuss the possibility. Is there a possibility of splitting the duties while we do a full search?
No.
No? What?
Someone has to be appointed to the interim role. It has to be a person. It can't be multiple people.
No. Okay.
Not really, no.
No. There's no ability to do that legally or no? Okay. Well, I asked the question. I felt that was a good alternative potentially.
It was discussed prior actually too. I chatted with a couple different people,
Okay.
corporate counsel. And
Okay, good. Well, hey, we are going through it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And we will see what happens. I'm gonna throw out my vote.
One comment in response to Commissioner Zalstra's, the financial services department actually is down 2 analysts right now. So you had mentioned is very well staffed. It is staffed with very great people, but they are in the process of hiring a couple of their analysts.
I understand that was more about the budget manager and giving her the flexibility to.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure you were aware.
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Commissioner Rhodey.
Yes, just a couple comments. I agree with Commissioner Miedema's concerns regarding the political atmosphere and how that may affect current staff relationships, both now and into the future. I greatly respect our current staff, and I really enjoyed the conversations that we were able to have over the last few days. I respect their work and believe that they have great strengths, and I know they will continue to help lead our county, whatever decision is made here today. Working in child welfare, I personally experienced law enforcement to provide steady leadership in the face of intense and critical situations and working for the good of all citizens, regardless of our backgrounds and our beliefs. John Anderson has extensive leadership and administrative background in a county that is 8 times the size of Ottawa. And just a little bit about Riverside County, California. It has a population of 2.4 million. It has a very diverse people, a sheriff's staff of over 4,000. And I believe at times John was responsible for at least 200 staff members. So he has experience of, leading a large group of people. And the other thing to appreciate about Riverside County is that it has both cities and rural areas, which reminds me of Ottawa County. And at one point in time, John was responsible for a section of that county that included an urban area that's larger than the city of Grand Rapids. So I appreciate that he understands both cities and rural. Let's see here. So his experience includes leadership of large departments, budgets, working with grants and human resources, strategic planning, and working with boards and commissions. I greatly do appreciate our county staff, and I want to see them continue to succeed in their roles. Again, I believe that they are very committed to our people. They're very committed to our county, and believe they will continue to provide leadership regardless of who's chosen today.
Thank you. Anyone else? If nobody else, I'll add a few comments. Thank you, board members. Really appreciate hearing all that you have to add and input. One thing to highlight is our departments do run well. The county administrator, whether interim or permanent, is a coordinating and leadership role. It's referred to in statute as a coordinator. And the department heads who are currently in place do an excellent job of running their departments. I'd love to see that continue. I look at board and county priorities, and I looked at things like the budget season, new budget software, strategic planning, broadband, and more. And when I think about what I want to see is I do want to see a leader come in and coordinate all of the things that are already happening. I'd like to add to the team. I don't want to be short-staffed in any area, whether it takes, days, weeks, or months to fill staff positions. So I'd like to see us build capacity. I think that would be the best decision for Ottawa County as well. And last two comments I have, one interesting thing I'd sent out to the board was a job description for a prior job that John had. And it was actually noted on there, it was required in that job to have extensive managerial and administrative ability, plus coordinating with interdepartmental staff. So I really like that direction. I think that would be great. John comes highly recommended from people who I trust. And for all these reasons and others, I'd like to see him appointed. And if there's no other discussion, then we're going to go to a vote. Would anyone else like to add anything? Okay, so to get us started, I guess if the clerk could call the roll, and commissioners can support anyone they want. Commissioner Zylstra, if you'd like to support Amanda Price, you can. There's not a limit here.
I would, but I have not talked to her whether she's willing to serve, so.
Okay.
So just to clarify, we don't have a list, so I'll
No.
write down whoever votes for whoever. Okay.
That'd be
sounds-
great. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
And so if the clerk could call the roll.
Mrs. Ebel,
Karen Ensinski,
Mrs. Miedema,
John Anderson.
Mrs. Wenzel,
John Anderson.
Ms. Cosby,
Karen Karazinski.
Mrs. Rhodey,
John Anderson.
Mrs. Curran,
Karen Karazinski,
Mr. Zylstra,
Karen Karasinski.
Mr. Belknap,
John Anderson.
and Mr. Moss.
John Anderson.
And Mr. Anderson is the selection.
All right, thank you. Welcome, John. And we're going to continue with our business because we have quite a few items that were removed from the consent agenda. We're going to go to the new 8D. How convenient. It starts with D and it goes through. Okay. So item D is Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application for UMAC. The suggested motion is to approve the Land and Water Conservation Fund program application for funding assistance for Upper Makatawa Natural Area Greenway Trailhead Project. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
second.
So motion and support. Is there any discussion, or we could go straight to Jason? Welcome.
Good morning.
Would you like to speak to this item a little bit?
Certainly. Let me pull up my notes here.
All right.
So,
Commissioner Zylstra, did you have any specific questions on this one?
Not specific, but I'd love to hear the presentation.
Okay, we'll hear the presentation for a second time. I believe it was also given in committee.
I was not on that committee, so
Did you have the opportunity to watch it online?
I don't think I should need to watch it online to have a
Oh.
presentation. So-
Okay, good. Jason, please continue.
yes. Thank you. So this grant in particular will help us facilitate a new restroom building at the Upper Macatawa Natural Area. So this, the park itself currently has a vault latrine. This new facility will be modern flushing restrooms, but it'll also provide changing facilities for the users of the park there. So this park, if you're not aware, is heavily used by mountain bikers. So it is also part of a bigger project that will incorporate connecting through the Upper Macatawa Natural Area into Holland Charter Township at Hawthorne Ponds, where there will be another restroom building we're working with the township on. So this grant is a Land and Water Conservation Fund project. And we are asking for 50% of the value at $347,000 and $47,500.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I appreciate the presentation, Jason.
You're welcome.
I think this is a great contribution to that area. Like you said, very well used area, and I'm sure the mountain bikers will appreciate the additions.
Yes, well, and I think all of the users. So
Well, no, I
it's-
understand.
Yep,
but
yep.
You were just talking about the mountain bikers, so.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's a fairly unique, we've talked about some of the unique facilities we have here. This is one of the things that we've heard from our users, in particular the mountain bikers. A lot of people use it, but they come after work, need a place to change. So we're pretty excited about this. This will also have the adult changing table as well that we've talked about before in our other restroom projects.
All right, thank you, Jason. Any other questions? Commissioner Cosby?
So Jason, one of our constituents got up and spoke pretty eloquently today about concerns regarding kind of land and farming land and maybe people not wanting the trails. And it might not just be necessarily this particular item, but I wondered if you had thoughts regarding, were you here for the constituents'
I did.
concerns?
Yep.
Did you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, on this project in particular, we did announce the grant application. There was no positive feedback or negative feedback regarding this project in particular. So it'll be constructed solely on Parks property, and then the connecting trail system will all be either on public property or partner nonprofits properties. So.
And any of the other projects that we're going to address here, so we can go, I guess, one by one, but I thought maybe this would just be an opportunity to
Yep.
okay,
So
share some
I think
additional information.
there's no, with any of the other projects that we're going to talk about, there's no, we already will be building either in the right of way or easements that landowners have willingly sold to us to allow for the trail connections. The other project is in the state recreational area at Bass River. So we partnered with them, and that's actually a grant that the state is funding a portion of that construction. So there are, always with any projects, some folks who have concerns about the change in use. So yes, we always try to be good neighbors and try to look at providing amenities for the whole community to use. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Commissioner Ebel?
Yes, one more question regarding Commissioner Cosby's comment or question. Because the concern of the constituent about taking farmland and possibly doing that. So none of this is farmland, or if it is, does the county normally get consent or have a discussion with farm owners or anybody who owns any of that property right in front of their property, I guess?
Yep. So
I
this
wonder if you could
project,
comment on that.
this project in and of itself is being built on Parks property that we already own and have already restored to natural areas and is developed with a parking area as well as trails system. So this one really I think is pretty benign in that sense. So
Thank you.
It's a restroom improvement, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Commissioner Belknap.
Thanks for being here, Jason. This really isn't entirely germane to the restroom project, but right now the parks is going through a strategic plan. We've had some workshops. I believe there's an opportunity for folks to, weigh in on some of these concerns online with a survey. Is that right? There's a
Yes.
link. And I know for myself, probably ad nauseum to Jason, I've been stressing the importance of, sort of the resource management aspect of what we're developing, lots of pavement. And just, I kind of bring that message that as we develop these trails, we need to have a mechanism in place to continually monitor their performance and their condition. Because I think, we're kind of in this process of developing a corridor with kind of a grand vision of connecting Lowell to the lake shore. And in different points throughout that sort of corridor, I've had some experience in developing some of these segments. But the bigger message that, we have an opportunity to kind of share with parks, if it's farmland preservation, if it's, appropriateness. And with Bass River especially, I know the DNR is involved. I was out there yesterday with some folks that use that area and other means, not just for biking, but we are trying to do a very thoughtful development of this network of trails. But, I'm going to be continuing to pound the drum of making sure we've got our pavement management in place and, ongoing, preservation of the system. So for what it's worth, I thought I'd just share that.
Thank you for sharing your experience too, Commissioner Belknap, in this space.
Yeah.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Zaska.
thanks, appreciate that. Just going back to Roger's comment, appreciate all the work that you and Allison are doing. Is there a thought that we're going to get a presentation on your strategic plan at some point? Because we'd love to see it. I think the public would love to see it here.
I think that's a little ways down the road.
So we've done some engagement sessions.
Right.
We'll be working on, we have several other components that we're working on. We have a scientific survey underway. There's also a public survey that Commissioner Belknap mentioned. So anybody can log on to our website under the planning tab and make sure you take the survey. And then we will have, I believe it's June 12th, I can confirm that, a public presentation of the draft strategic plan, and we'll try to post that at least a week or two ahead of time. And we'll have that, I think, June 12th at 6 p.m. at our Nature Center. So to present it and then have the public provide feedback on that.
Commissioner Miedema.
Since we're on the strategic plan, even though we're on this other motion, I just want to give you an opportunity, Jason, to maybe talk a little bit more about the scientific survey. I've had a couple people reach out asking how is that being conducted? Are they receiving phone calls? Are they receiving text messages? If that's the case, what is it? Who is it coming from so that they can identify that it's truly from Ottawa County Parks?
Yes, so it is. So we've hired a consultant, Problasti Research, and they will be sending both postcards as well as text messages. There will be a phone opportunity to participate in the survey over phone, as well as I believe they have a web link that people can do it electronically. So we'll be surveying 400 to 450 residents across the county, focusing on parks initiatives and projects.
So when it comes on their text, it says Velaski, is that correct?
Poblaski.
Poblaski, okay.
Yes, and then we asked them to clarify last Wednesday. There were, I think the initial text messages were a little more vague about what the survey was regarding, and we made sure the next morning they clarified that it was Ottawa County Parks and Recreation Commission survey.
Okay.
So hopefully that's clarified any confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, well, will the clerk please call the roll for 8D?
Yes, sir. Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, 8E, contract for MDNR support of Bass River Trail segment. The suggested motion is to approve the cooperative agreement with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources for funding assistance in the amount of $715,000 for the development of the Idema Explorers Trail Bass River segment Phase 1. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Any discussion, or we'll go straight to Jason?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have been working with the state. Our records go back into the 70s when this property was first identified as a place to secure, and we partnered with the state then and supported their acquisition. They've long time been a supporter of the Idema Explorers Trail of the Grand River Greenway connecting. It's a 36.5 mile multi-purpose trail that will connect between Grand Haven and Kent County. So we have worked through negotiating with the state. We have a management agreement that allows us to construct and then manage a trail through their property. And then they've already provided 2 grant agreements for funding supporting the project. So this is the 3rd such agreement. And this will help us with the construction of what we call the west phase of the trail segment. So it'll connect with Grand River Park or Riverside Park in Robinson Township. We already have the easements there across some of the property. They'll connect it into Riverside, and this will run then east towards the rest of the property. So.
All right, any other questions from board members? Commissioner Zylstra.
So Jason, how much is coming out of the Parks Foundation on this one?
I'm sorry,
How much is coming out of the Parks Foundation on this one? It's
So I believe we
257.
included, yeah, a budget in there.
And I think the next item also has some Parks Foundation funding as well, right?
Correct.
Where are we on the Parks Foundation? I know it's not obviously Ottawa County specific, but balance on the foundation.
I don't know the exact balance. So there was a $7.2 million private campaign that was completed in 2021. So we've made draws on those on various segments. The Ottawa Sands Explorers Camp was also funded that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact balance on those.
But we're doing pretty healthy on that one. I realize it's not Ottawa County specific, but Ottawa County residents obviously have contributed wholeheartedly to that foundation. So it's good to see.
Yes. So we always try to approach all of our projects with a mix between grant dollars, our millage funds, and then funding through philanthropic community. So.
All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Belknap?
Jason, just to confirm on the Bass River Trail segment section, the actual center line of this trail is still kind of in the process of planning, is that right? Or as far as like.
So we are still finalizing that route.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Ebel?
Yes, Jason. So asking once again, just to clarify, is any of this land that's, they're building this trail segment, any of this farmland, or who basically owns this? I know that I already asked that question, but I was wondering whether your previous answer included all 3, D, E, and F,
So this property in particular is owned by the State Department of Natural Resources. So the component that we're, this segment is looking at is managed by the Recreation Division. So there's another segment of DNR that's recreation, that's managed by the Wildlife Division. So, but this is the westerly phase.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right. Anything else?
Just a plug for the site itself. If you're a fisherman or kayaker, it's a beautiful land. Very unique.
All right. Thank you. Could we please go to the clerk to call the roll on this one?
Yes, sir. Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mr. Cos, or Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're up to 8F, 2024 Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Grant Application. The suggested motion is to approve the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund Program application for funding assistance to construct the East Manville Connector segment of the Grand River Greenway Idema Explorers Trail. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and support. Mr. Chamberlain.
Thank you. So this is another segment of the trail. This will run from Eastmanville Bayou, and it will run east through Eastmanville Bayou. With Allendale Township to connect and continue the segment, which would be the Allendale segment, which through this process, we've been working with the Road Commission and MDOT and the township on a crossing of M45. So, and then that will connect into trail segment that's already been built. So, but this is specifically a 3-mile segment that will connect some of those neighborhoods into the Eastmanville Bayou open space. So there have been some questions about, opposition. We have received a handful of concerns about this trail because it does route through what is typically been a more of a remote area in the county. So it will change and impact some of those neighbors. However, there is no we are not taking any land. This is all either in public right of way or we're working with neighbors to secure various easements that will help us improve the trail route. So the project's about 95% complete design work. So this will help us fund this project. This is a $400,000 trust fund grant. So happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Cosby?
So Lowell to Lakeshore is the first time I've heard that. So how many miles is that?
So
approximately?
our component's 36.5. I'm not sure the distance. I'll look into that, the distance between the Ottawa County line and Lowell. So, but King County has kind of taken the torch and they're trying to work on their plan within the past 2 years or so and really work on connecting their segments of the trail now.
Are there ways that we can kind of reduce the public impact for some of the landowners in the area that are accustomed to having kind of traffic in their private
So
areas?
we do that as much as we can practically. So this is our optimum route. So built to connect, neighborhoods with the various parks, and then to our other segments of trail.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wenzel?
You had mentioned that you had spoken with some of the neighbors that's affecting. I was just interested in if everyone was contacted, who that was going to affect and what their responses were.
So we had a public meeting for this grant application, and we sent postcards to everybody, I think within several hundred feet of this trail segment. So they were welcome to come and participate or send input. We had a handful of folks who showed up and participated at that meeting. I think, several were in support of it and very favorable of it. Several people raised some concerns. One person was an adjacent property owner who shared concerns that although it doesn't go on his property, there is a public right of way adjacent to his property that it would run. So he's enjoyed kind of the privacy back there. And by building this trail, that will change. However, it is on a public right of way. So we aren't changing or messing with his property rights. So we're building within the public right of way.
Commissioner Miedema.
So we had really good discussion on this particular item at Planning and Policy this last week. And so whatever is not covered today, I would encourage anyone who has interest to go back and look at the question and answer for anyone in the public. But I would say I went out along with a couple other commissioners to this particular segment to see some of the strengths as well as potentially some of the concerns brought forward from constituents. I would agree that with Jason, that it does not violate anyone's property. It's definitely being used in the right of way or voluntarily with an easement. I will say, trying to think of some of on the 61st Street, I think that's the right one. I think that's the area, Jason, that I had brought up my concerns for wanting to protect the current country-like setting that the people enjoy that currently live there. And we had talked about the possibilities of going forward through Allendale Township and the Road Commission to make sure that there were signs put out there that not to park on that particular stretch so that it doesn't become a collected area where all kinds of cars are parking on this kind of what feels like a dead end dirt road area. And so that was something that I've been satisfied with the answer that's been brought forward from Parks. And I think that's something that I want to continue seeing with this going forward. That's something that they really strive to make sure that happens.
Commissioner Belknap.
One of the things I learned when we visited the site, in this sort of public right of way, we have gas and water utilities that are within this stretch. And right now we have several downed trees. It's really inaccessible. So I think if anything, from a, delivery of public service and have access to critical infrastructure, at a minimum, having that corridor to a degree accessible by equipment is a must.
Okay, Commissioner Rhodey.
Yes, so the one additional concern with this particular piece of this particular project is two very busy intersections. And so we discussed that I know last week as well. So I did talk to the township board last night about this project and some of those concerns, including, the need to make sure that we have signage on 61st to help with that parking situation. So I'm going to have some continued discussions with them, and I think they're interested in continuing to look at just making sure that these concerns are addressed, especially the safety of those two busy intersections. Because, talking through it, they're concerned with those safety factors as well. So.
Yes, and we'll work with all the local jurisdictions as well as the Road Commission. And as I mentioned on the other segment, we're communicating with MDOT. So we'll always strive to be the best neighbor we possibly can be and have the safest route possible. So.
Commissioner Zylstra.
Thanks. Jason, how do you, just going back to kind of the funding question, how do you kind of look at millage versus the Greenway Fund on things? Is it because there's donations specifically tied to that you're using?
In the original project plan was established, I believe, in 2016.
Sure.
So, we have a mix. This in particular is a grant that this segment that hadn't originally been built into the budgeting process, but we think it's a good project that will score well, and then that will help us in the long run with the project budget. So they had split out back then how many millage dollars of the 7.2 million that was raised through private funding, how much would go to the various segments. There's
Okay.
also some land acquisition involved in that as well. So
So is there a scoring, do we score better if it's coming from one source versus another then?
So the match, the local match is always important to the scoring.
Sure.
On the project sheet that's included in the package, you'll note that there's a segment that is purple. So in the most recent census, that segment of Allendale Township is now, let's see how we have it marked. It is part of the urbanized zone. So any areas within the urbanized zone receive a higher funding or a higher score. So it's all a competitive grant process. And we feel like this one, depending on the year and the trust funds investments, that this one should score very well.
Okay, thank you.
Right, anything else? Let's go to the clerk for a vote on 8F.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. At this point, I guess I'd look for a motion for a 5-minute recess, take a quick break. We still have several items.
Moved.
Second.
Motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. Take 5 to 7 minutes and come right back to business. One, for all of the discussion. Thank you to the media for your questions. Thank you to public commenters for your board bashing. We're not online yet. We're still waiting for commissioners Rhodey and Curran. Okay. Okay, so I am going to. Oh, is that?
No.
Oh, it's 11. Yeah, it's 11. You're okay. Yeah. Yeah. Unless it's 11:30, you gotta go. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. If you could please take your seats. Thank you, everyone. Going to just return to an item that I unfortunately missed in my haste to share more about the process and information of appointing an interim administrator. I neglected to make the motion, and so let's just go back and we will ratify the vote of the board. So I will motion to appoint John Anderson as the interim county administrator, and I will need a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor of appointing John Anderson as interim county administrator, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, and that motion carried. Thank you. And thank you to the clerk.
Sorry for not recognizing that myself, Mr. Chair.
No, I really appreciate it. We are on 8G, which is accounts payable for January 29, 2024 through February 23, 2024. The motion is to approve the general claims in the amount of $19,109,990.54 as presented by the summary report for January 29, 2024 through February 23, 2024. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and support. Any discussion on accounts payable? Okay. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We're up to the new 8H, Republic Services Contract. The suggested motion is to approve a contract with Republic Services. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second. What?
We have motions and seconds. Motion from Commissioner Curran, I believe, second from Commissioner Miedema. Thank you. Any discussion on the Republic Services contract?
Is there anybody who could just talk about this real quick?
Is there anyone who would like to talk about this really quick? Any other comments or discussions on this one? Let's see. So this is to provide recycling and waste services to the 4 environmental sustainability centers. It's a 1-year agreement with an option for renewal. My understanding is this is a renewal of this ongoing contract. Okay, if we could please go to the clerk for a vote on this one as well.
Sir, Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. We're now up to 8I, resolution to authorize qualifying statements for bonding purposes. The suggested motion is to approve the resolution to authorize certification of a qualifying statement for bonding purposes. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and support. Thank you. Any questions or discussion on 8I? This one was fairly straightforward and very short. Seeing no additional discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carried. Okay, we are up to 8J, Veterans Affairs Department Personnel Request. Suggested motion is to approve a proposal to add 1.0 FTE full-time benefited administrative assistant position at a universal pay grade 7 for a total cost of $97,211. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And wondering if Jason would like to add a little bit of detail. If board members have any questions?
Good morning.
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 Thanks for having me. Questions?
I'll just say I was really excited to hear that you mentioned that although this is kind of an administrative role at first, you're looking to ideally move whoever is hired towards a VSO position.
That's correct. So yeah, career progression, development, professional development. I think it's key for this role to get the understanding of the county resources and what we do to help our veterans at the county level. And then the growth progression would be get accredited through R2 accredited through the state and through the National County Veteran Service Officers. And then at that point, we can look at career progression into a promotion into, and we're working with HR now to see what that next role, the VSO role looks like, pay grade, that sort of issue as well. So, yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. Commissioner Zalstra.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Jason, I just want to say thank you for your time the last few days. I was concerned about this position, being added so quickly, after the establishment of the department, but, I really appreciate you, walking me through it, why we need it and how that's really going to help us serve veterans in Ottawa County. So thank you for all you do. And, thank you for, putting us in front of us and making sure that, we have the resources we need to serve veterans here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your support. So I'll add too that earlier in the month when I went through my annual report and the kind of the state of the union of what the department looks like, we talked about a veteran population of a little less than 12,000. What I've learned in the last couple of weeks is that number really has to be inflated. And this is what I mean by that. For every qualifying veteran that is eligible for resources within the county is also a spouse and dependent children that go along with that. So when we look at 12,000, we can really probably guesstimate right now of between 40 to 50,000 veteran families in the county that will require some sort of resource over the next few years. So, we look at our Vietnam generation, and there's a few in this room today who I absolutely want to say I'm totally appreciative of everything. And March 29th is actually Vietnam Veterans Day for us to honor their service. This generation now is at the age where they're asking for assistance. Their spouses are asking for assistance. And within a case management, for those who have worked in those, and I know Commissioner Cosby working in the hospital, case management isn't a one and done. Most of the time when you file a claim or you ask for assistance, there's going to be multiple touches throughout that process. Sometimes claims get rejected. Sometimes we ask for additional documentation. Sometimes there's wrong forms that were filled out. So each one of those folks that we're talking about is going to require hours of additional work. So it's not cut and dry. You've claimed and now you've been awarded that claim. We have to continue to do that work. And this role here will definitely assist me on a day-to-day basis on the operational side of making sure we're taking care of folks within the county. But it's also going to give me the opportunity to grow strategically as we're requested to do more, as people know that we're available, and then we broaden what we do. So I've already been asked on multiple occasions to do things that were probably outside the scope of the last group. So those items are time consuming as well. So I appreciate the time to ask for some additional help. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner Cosby.
Yes, and I'd spoken with Jason about this position, and some of the things that he also added is that this will improve his response times. He's a one-man show right now for our veterans. I think you said you came back after visiting, I think, Muskegon, and ended up with Muskegon's VA, and ended up with like 15 phone calls that you needed to respond to. Like to be on the other end of the phone if we can be for our veterans. And then also transitioning off of paper records into an electronic record is a big undertaking as well. So I think this position will provide that support and then give Jason some backup for the role.
Commissioner Miedema.
Jason, with this, if this passes, how long do you think you'll still be alone? How long before this person can be actually coming to work alongside you?
Well, I have some additional support now in a part-time opportunity
Okay.
that will provide some coverage gap. I mean, we're probably looking forward to 6 weeks before we post it, and then we have a candidate pool that we can interview and move through. Hopefully before the summer season starts. Also, we have a lot of veterans that will be coming home late spring, early summer from their vacations in Florida and Arizona and those other retirement communities. So I do see our work increasing as the summer months come in.
Thanks.
And that other position is grant funded, correct? Non-benefited grant funded.
That's correct.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So on 8J, the Veterans Affairs Department personnel request, if clerk could please call the roll.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. We're up to 8K, the FY 2024 budget adjustments. Suggested motion is to approve the FY 2024 budget adjustments per the attached schedule. Get a motion, please.
So moved?
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Commissioner Zylstra.
Quick question. I don't know if Karen is here right now or
She is.
Karen, nice to see you.
Good morning.
Morning. On 0602, the corporate council contingency, is that kind of just a plug or for the 8,000, or do we kind of, I don't think we're done with Brooke, right? I mean, that's more of just a plug than anything else.
That was an estimate provided to me.
Right.
I don't believe we've received an invoice yet.
Okay, good. Right. Thanks. That's it. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, if we could just go to the clerk for the roll on this one as well.
Yes, sir. Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Okay, that brings us to item 9, committee reports. And first up is Cheryl Clark, Ottawa County Treasurer, for the 2023 annual report. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm pleased to present to you the 2023 fiscal year annual report for the Treasurer's Office. You can go to the next slide. What? Oh, sorry. So the Treasurer's Office has 2 locations in the county. We have an office in Grand Haven at the Public Service Center, where we have 1 full-time employee located. We have our other offices here at the Fillmore Administration Complex, and we have 8 team members here. The revenues for the treasurer's office in fiscal year 23 were $5,003,719. And as you can see, the bulk of those revenues came from interest earned. The expenses for the same fiscal year, $1,205,821, and the bulk of those expenses were our personnel costs. I will be breaking down our annual report into 3 categories: dollars, dogs, and delinquencies. Those are the 3 main functions of our office. So we'll start with dollars. The treasurer's office is the depository for all county funds. I like to refer to us as the bank of the county. We work collaboratively with all the departments throughout the county to account for the funds that they take in. We handle certain activities for the Ottawa County Insurance Authority, the Building Authority, Land Bank Authority, Public Defender, Water Resource Commissioner, Road Commission, and also for OPEB, which is the other post-employee benefits. Part of that work includes the sheeting checks from our various checking accounts that we have. And when we sheet the checks, we send them to the state of Michigan. Payees can then claim any funds from the Michigan Department of Treasury. Unless they are less than $25, then they will claim them from our office. The treasurer's office invests the county's surplus funds according to PA 20 and the investment policy, which you, the Board of Commissioners, approved. In fiscal year 2023, our rate of return was 2.773%. That was compared to a blended benchmark of a negative 0.246944. Approximately $36,495,000 of the portfolio was laddered over a 5-year period. The portfolio earned $4,570,218 in interest. Tax searches are another function that our office performs. That includes recording of conveyance of property, which is done online, in person, and through the mail. We also perform them for land divisions, which are sent from the local governmental units. And we do them for closings on property sales, which is done online and in person or mail. So in 1995, the Board of Commissioners established a Municipal Civil Infractions Bureau so that the county would receive the revenue instead of the state. And the treasurer's office was designated as the Collections Bureau. As a Municipal Civil Infractions Bureau, the treasurer's office collects the violation ticket fines. We pay for the costs of equipment, paper, ticket forms that are used to issue the tickets. And then we turn over any unpaid violation tickets to the district court to be processed. As you can see in fiscal year 2023, the total revenue was much less than prior years. And that was due to an incorrect wording on violation notices that were issued. So we were unable to enforce those. This has been corrected for fiscal year 2024. The next one is library penal fines. Many people do not know that the Ottawa County Treasurer's Office handles the library penal fines. We are tasked with receiving those fines, investing them, and distributing them to the libraries within the county. The fines are held in a separate bank account, and then the interest earned is distributed along with the fines to each library, according to their population of the jurisdiction. In 2023, total fines collected was 871,216. Total interest earned, 19,378, and the total paid to libraries, 890,594. We're gonna move on to dogs. In fiscal year 2023, you will see that our revenue was less in dog license sales, dog and kennel license sales. And that is because we sell 3-year licenses. So you can see in 2022, we had a large amount of purchases then, or sales then. So now we're on the 3-year cycle. So we're going to be down lower in 23 and lower in 24. But then in 25, we should be right where we were in 21 or 22, I'm sorry. The veterinary offices sell licenses along with our office and the Humane Society and some townships and cities. And we also offer them online. You can see the veterinarian offices are the ones that sell the bulk of them, which works out great because I don't know if you have dogs, but they are able to sell the license right when their dog is getting their rabies vaccination. So it's convenient for the pet owners. In 2023, there were 8,389 licenses sold with a revenue of 169,312. So in 2023, we go through our list of dogs and we come up with the top dog breeds. The first one was a Labrador Retriever. The second one was a Golden Retriever, and the third one was the German Shepherd. And then the top names for 2023 were Luna, Daisy, and Bella. One other thing that a lot of people do not know is that we will sell a cat license if a cat owner would like to purchase one. A lot of the owners would like to purchase them because it helps in reuniting their cat if it were to get lost with them quicker. We're gonna move on to delinquency, which is probably the hot topic of the day. Taxes are billed and collected by the local units of government and are turned over to the county treasurer's office on March 1 of every year. The collections on the county operating, parks, 911, road, community mental health, and state education tax are paid to the county treasurer by the local units twice a month. And then the treasurer's office disperses those funds to all of the taxing entities. The settlement process occurs during the whole month of March, which we are in now. And delinquent real property taxes are purchased out of the delinquent tax revolving fund. The benefit of having a delinquent tax revolving fund is so that the county does not have to borrow funds to purchase these delinquent taxes. In 2023, the county purchased 2,993 parcels, and it was a total of 5,999,630. Those became our responsibility to collect. And then we pay out after the settlement process is completed in the month of March, mid-April. Our office will pay out to all of the taxing entities. We reimburse them for all of the delinquent taxes that we are now going to be collecting. That way, all of the funds stay with the county once we collect the delinquent taxes. Oh, wait, sorry, go back. Okay. After each taxing authority is paid for the delinquent real property taxes, the county treasurer then becomes responsible for collecting them. And we view our role as assisting taxpayers. We meet with them. Any taxpayers that are experiencing financial stress to understand their situations. We make referrals to agencies that can assist in some manner. And if appropriate, we'll develop a payment plan with them to get their taxes paid. One of the agencies that we have referred taxpayers to is the Michigan Housing Assistance Fund, which was for Michigan residents who were affected by COVID and unable to make their tax payments. To date, 17 Ottawa County properties have had their taxes paid by this fund, and 2 more are on the waiting list. This program did stop, though, at the end of 2023. In 2023, we had, like I said, we had 2,993 parcels that were delinquent. Of those, or we also had in 2023, 327 parcels that had 2021 delinquent taxes that went into forfeiture. We had 20 parcels that had 2020 delinquent taxes that were granted a financial hardship by our office. And then there were 12 parcels that had the 2020 taxes still owing that were foreclosed on. Out of those 12 parcels, 8 were sold at the first auction, 2 were sold at the second auction, and 2 were not sold. I included the foreclosure timeline for you. One reason why I did that is because with the change in the law, this has increased the workload of the treasurer's office. Before, the tax process was a 3-year process. It is now a 4-year process. And there are several things that were added to our responsibilities with the change in the law. So if you would like to follow along with me on this timeline, we'll follow a delinquent 2020 tax. So in tax year 1, March of 2021, we took over that collection. In March of 2022, the tax went into forfeiture. In tax year 3 of March of 2023, it would have been foreclosed on. And then in tax year 4, the claimant would have been able to claim portions of the sale proceeds at that time. Yeah. Okay. You can go to the next screen. So one thing that the Ottawa County Treasurer's Office oversees is the Land Bank Authority. Joe Moss is on that authority.
It's a fun one.
I'm sorry.
It's a fun one.
It's a fun one, yeah. The county treasurer is the chair of the Land Bank Authority, and we currently hold 1 gap parcel in the land bank, and it's in Holland Township. And we're reviewing our options on what we may do with this piece of property. You can go back. So there were several projects that our office was able to obtain funding from the state land bank for blight elimination. And with the help of Strategic Impact, they identified 4 areas or 4 pieces of property that could use the blight elimination funding to remove those buildings and clean up the sites. The first one was 135, 137 Main Street in Zeeland City. The demo cost for that project was $55,064. Capital investment is being provided by the developer, and construction has begun on that. I'm going to skip to the next slide. So in there, you can see that the building is gone now on the left-hand side of the screen, and then on the right-hand side are renderings of what will be there. The next one was 19686 Main Street in the village of Conklin. The demo cost for that was $99,745. It's planned for mixed use development and the construction is to begin in the next year. The next one was 518 Harbor Drive in Grand Haven City. That project was delayed due to not being able to align the construction with the grant deadlines. So there was no funding given to that project. 3302 Prospect Street in Hudsonville City. The demolition cost for that was $110,260. Capital investment is to be provided by the developer, TIF, the MEDC, and the county. And the construction is to begin this year. You can see there are, they have not done the removal of the building yet, but the renderings are on the left-hand side, so you can see what is proposed to go in there. So with these projects, what happens is the tax base is now will be increased with the new projects going in, which helps out the county. Okay, in fiscal year 2024, our initiatives are to complete a request for proposal for investment software and for cash sharing software, to restructure our office, adding 1 full-time employee, updating job descriptions, and providing cross-training. And the reason why I am focused on that is because, like I said, we have had a lot of responsibilities added with the change in the tax law. So we are looking that it has become apparent that we need more help in our office. Our next one is to fully integrate the new Chief Deputy Treasurer, who I would like to introduce at this time. Jason Condrat. And he will provide a brief bio for you.
Welcome, Jason.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, my name is Jason Conrad. I've been with the county for almost 2 years. I've been in the treasurer's office, and I've also worked in accounts payable with Karen Karensinski here at the county. Prior to that, I spent 22 years in the Coast Guard and was a chief petty officer. So I'm retired from the Coast Guard, and now I work here at the county and just enjoy serving the people, and will continue to serve the people.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I did forget to mention, there was the question earlier about the retroactivity. We have estimated that depending on how many years we have to go back, it could be around 2.3 million that we would have to pay out. This amount could be more because they are still in trying to decide whether or not we will have to pay interest on the money that we held, or we may have to pay attorney fees. So we have about 2.3 million in the delinquent tax revolving funds. So if we have to pay out more than what is in there, we may have to borrow funds to make those payments. Are there any questions?
One question on that. Is that situation nationwide or statewide?
Statewide, because there is another state that is dealing with some of this, but they are kind of on hold watching how everything is handled here in Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it basically came down to how we foreclosed on the property prior to this new tax law change. And how we kept the funds after the property was sold at auction. What a lot of people do not realize is that although we may have sold a house for more than what was owing in the taxes, there may have been several pieces of property, especially gap pieces of property that nobody owns, that did not sell. And so we took a loss on those. And we also have a lot of time and money into auctioning off the properties. So the new tax law does include the process for us to be able to keep funds from the sale of the property at auction so that we can cover our costs that we have into auctioning those properties off.
Thank you. Commissioner Ebel?
Depending on the results of that, is that also part of the legal aspect of it, that the county would also be responsible to pay for interest along with?
Yes, so we could have to pay interest and we could have to pay attorney fees.
Commissioner Cosby, did you have a question?
I had a question related to the Land Bank Authority and Blight Elimination Program.
Yes.
Just because you've got the slides up there. So is there an application process for that? I know I was looking to see if Paul was around.
I was hoping if Becky would be here from Strategic Impact.
Yeah. A couple of those properties, one of them I recognize, well, two.
I think that there was
actually.
an application process that had to go through and meet all of these deadlines, and it had to meet certain qualifications to receive the funding. And like I showed in the one for Grand Haven City, they didn't meet the deadlines, so they were not able to get that funding.
That's one I do recognize. And so like owner and development, there are owners and they have like the development rights. Do you,
Yes.
and maybe I need to ask Becky this, or maybe Joe knows from being on the committee, but how do we inform community members of these opportunities too?
So that is something that our land bank discussed at the last meeting that we had, which was in January. We are going to look at ways of getting this information out to areas where, and working with the local governmental unit assessors to find where there is blighted properties available that may meet these qualifications. I'm not sure on the funding though that the state land bank has, and if they will be giving out any more funding for that.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
I had a question on the land bank too. Am I correct in understanding that it's sort of a rare commodity? Like, not a lot of counties have a land bank.
So it is, I'm not sure how many counties in the state of Michigan have a land bank, but they vary on how the land bank handles the properties that it takes in. Our land bank authority decided very early on that we did not want to take property that could be sold at an auction that somebody else could use. And so we have only taken in properties that were not sold at auction. I remember back when Brad Slaw was the treasurer, we had a property that had underground gas tanks. And so we ended up, that did not sell at auction. We ended up giving, the land bank ended up taking it in, and we were able to get grants to get those tanks removed and cleaned up. And then we're able to sell that property. And getting it back on the tax rolls is a benefit.
Anything additional? Commissioner Curran?
I did look it up real quick. There are 50 counties that have land
Oh.
banks, and then the other 33 are serviced by a state land.
State land bank, okay.
Commissioner Zylstra?
I think so. Cheryl, going to 2023, when it talks about foreclosed land sales, proceeds were 214,000. And then last total tax was 42, so there was a net of 172. How does that relate to this whole discussion of, Raffaele, and are those checks being sent back to residents, or do we hold on to that money?
We are holding on to that money in the delinquent tax revolving fund currently. If somebody is interested in filing a claim for those proceeds on a piece of property, they have to file it by a specific date, and that was in the timeline. And then the judge, circuit court, decides whether or not they do have a claim. a valid claim, and then they decide also how much of the proceeds they will receive.
Okay.
There could be more than one person that files a claim for those proceeds. So the judge would have to determine how much each one of them.
Okay, so it's just not an automatic process that, you owe for example, $10 and we sell it for 100, you don't automatically get that.
No, we
$10
have,
back.
they have to file a claim first. If nobody files a claim, then it stays in the delinquent tax revolving
Okay.
fund.
And so this 2.3 million, that's part of a class action, right? Or?
Yes.
So it's,
No, there is class action lawsuits, and then there are some where people opted out of the class action lawsuit and are
Right.
suing us individually.
so of that 2.3, each resident will have to request specifically
They,
in the same manner or no?
I believe so. I believe that they will then have to
Okay.
file their claim.
So we
and-
owe that, but it's not like it's automatically gonna
Right.
happen. There still has to be a process.
Right.
Thank you very much, Chair.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, 9B is Ottawa County 20th Circuit Court Probation and Parole 2023 Annual Report, presented by Heath White.
Hello.
Welcome.
Happy to be here. My department really appreciates our partnership with the county, and we continue to hope we have strong relations with you guys. We appreciate everything everyone on the board does. So thank you very much. The Ottawa County Circuit Court Probation Parole Department, we currently have 3 offices in Ottawa County. We service obviously the 20th Circuit Court, but also the Michigan Department of Corrections parole population. We have offices in Grand Haven, right in the courthouse, in Hudsonville, and in Holland on James Street. We currently have 22 employees throughout the county. We currently supervise approximately 816 probationers or parolees within the county. I think in my report I put 600, but that number is incorrect because I ran the numbers yesterday and it shows we have 816 in our county. Some of the things we do for our probation parole is, provide supervision, which is abiding by the court orders for a probationer or the parole board orders for the parolee. We'll supervise them by utilizing various programming within the county. We partner with faith-based organizations and private companies as well. We also use Tether, GPS devices. Currently, we have 10 registered sex offenders on GPS in the county that we are currently supervising. For cases like that, we supervise their movements wherever they go. We give them a time frame to get their business done within the community and get back. We just monitor as they're coming and going as they're required. We'll also utilize Scram technology, which is a bracelet that will go on a individual's leg to monitor alcohol use for cases such as drunk driving thirds. This is a really resourceful tool if someone just cannot stop drinking. This will monitor them out in the community and make sure they're abiding by their court orders. A vital service we provide for the courts is the pre-sentence report packet. This provides documentation to the judge, to the courts, to the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, a background history on the individual, what their prior criminal history involved, what their social support systems are, where they work, where they employed, what's their educational background, along with the offense itself. This is a vital document we provide the courts. Last year, we provided 550 PSI reports to the court. We also provide fee collections in Ottawa County. This is one area we're pretty particular about. We partner with the court clerk's office. They will actually do what's called an order to show cause for delinquent payments. I think last year we had 75% of all fees were collected. One of the other things we do for Ottawa County and supervision of offenders is drug testing. Last year, our big issue we had was methamphetamines. That's the highest what we're seeing in the last couple of years is meth has been the biggest problem within the community. And once again, we have various programming to refer offenders to, whether it's drug treatment, the adult drug treatment court. And if we have to, sometimes we have to jail people in order to get them to stop using drugs for a short period of time to get them clean and sober, and then get them engaged in some sort of substance abuse program. We also have offenders participate in community service. Last year, we completed 10,534 hours of community service in 2023. So that number is a very fluid number. It sometimes goes up higher because we're constantly getting new cases, new orders of community service. Again, we partner with Ottawa County for community service, whether it's picking up trash along the highways or local various churches are always eager to have someone come in and help, like whether to set up events and those sorts of things. I'd like to open up for questions. If you guys have any.
Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Curran?
Thank you. You mentioned that methamphetamines have been a very large issue in the community. And that you oftentimes will send them to treatment. I was curious to find out how, like, of the 100 people you send to treatment, how many of that 100 are actually
Successful?
Yes, that's the word.
Yeah, I don't have actual data on that. You know, there is a lot of relapse, especially when you're dealing with methamphetamines. It's one of the harder substances to get off of it. They say where like cocaine, you can have a 90-day treatment program, or meth, it might take a longer period of time. That's what I've been told through, but I don't have actual data on the success rates for people coming off meth.
And then my other question is what type of programs are available for treatment? And then would you say that you see more success in one program over another?
Not particularly. Various on their levels of care they need for drug treatment. I think the adult drug treatment court has our highest rates of success because it's a very intensive program, swift sanctions, constant monitoring of their drug and alcohol use, frequent testing. I think our intensive outpatient programming works very well too. Again, that's another higher level of care for offenders who may have a serious drug alcohol problem. Again, it's more meetings, more contact with their therapist.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Heath. We really appreciate you.
One thing I forgot to mention with our partnership, we do a lot of what's called Nighthawk activity. That's where we partner with local law enforcement. We go out in the community with a police officer doing compliance checks. Our biggest target this year are firearms, getting firearms out of the hands of known felons. This year, in the last couple of months, we took 12 guns away from known felons in the community. So that's one priority our director is really wanting us to focus on when we go out in the community doing home searches and compliance checks, is to look for guns, firearms, ammunition. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rhodey?
I thank you for your work.
Thank you.
A question along the lines of the substance abuse programs. Is most of that treatment happening in county, or are we finding a need to do inpatient, outside of the county? What is that looking like?
Mostly, we use Harbor House in county. Most of the treatment providers are in county, whether it's Pine Rest, Reach for Recovery, Samaritas, Wedgwood. They have a treatment place in Holland. So most of it, it's in county.
I'm just curious about funding on that. Who's paying for that treatment? Do you partner with CMH?
Part of CMH.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we go through CMH as the gatekeeper when we refer people for treatment.
Okay.
Commissioner Cosby?
Just in kind of along those same lines. So you said, forgive me, that you have to incarcerate sometimes because of kind of recidivism.
Yes.
And so where is the detox taking place then? Because that's pretty intense.
Depends. If it's medically required detox, a lot of times if we incarcerate someone in jail, we'll have them go to the hospital. We'll release our detainer and they can go to the hospital to have a medical detox.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Belknap?
Good morning.
Morning.
Is there any issues? I'm looking at the report and so the hours ordered for community service and the hours completed, there seems to be a gap. Is
Yes.
that gap based upon just, there's not, I guess, opportunities out there and?
No, that's just because a lot of the numbers, they're fluid, like people are just sentenced recently.
Okay.
And so the numbers are not catching up to where what they've done. Sometimes we'll put, depending on the person's needs, we may delay community service on the back end of supervision due to, let's say, if someone's a drug addict who's chronic, they may not, we need to get them into residential treatment right away or intensive outpatient treatment right away. Focus on getting them sober first, then we'll get them engaged with the community service. So it might not be right at the front end we're doing the community service, it might be on the back end of supervision.
Okay, so when I read that, it's not that there's a lack of opportunity for folks to earn those hours. It's just because of the scheduling and where they are along. the
Yeah,
process.
no, we have plenty of opportunity in Ottawa County.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Commissioner Meadman?
Morning, Heath. Thank you
Yes.
for being here and for your work.
Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. First one is, do you feel that you and your staff have time set aside that you are able to work together to create goals, ongoing goals, to continue hearing from staff members and where you want to head and where you're currently at?
Yeah, we do meet, once again, we're with the state, Michigan Department of Corrections, so a lot of our, information goes up the chain to Lansing. But yeah, we do have a lot of time where we, discuss our needs, what we'd like to see more. I think we're getting, we got bulletproof vests a couple of years ago, which was nice. I think we are on slate now to get, cameras. So when we're out in the field, doing our home checks, compliance checks, we have a camera to protect ourselves and the community.
Good. And then can you give just a little bit of an overall picture of how many of your staff members, like how long have they worked there? Are they long-term employees? Are there a lot of new people coming in?
No, one thing with Ottawa County, this is kind of a community people want to work in, and most of my staff have worked other places. They may have came from Detroit, Grand Rapids. They want to come to Ottawa County because we have a lot more veteran agents in this community than bigger urban areas. So we attract a lot of veteran staff out of the county to come here and work. So most of them are, like I got 30 years. I got a couple that have 35 years. And I think the lowest has 15 years.
Okay,
service.
thank you.
Yep.
Are there currently any needs that you feel are coming to the horizon that that you feel like the board could be supporting you better?
No, we appreciate everything you guys provide us. The office space and the tools, the office tools to do our jobs. It's been nothing but great. So we're very satisfied where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just real quick. How many staff members do you have?
There's 22 in Ottawa County. I have 11 in Holland. I'm the supervisor in Holland, and Ben Sutherland is the supervisor for Grand Haven and Hudsonville. I got those numbers. There's 9 employees in Grand Haven, 2 in Hudsonville, and 11 in Holland.
Nighthawk work seems very intense.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yeah, I'm just curious, what is your average caseload at any given time?
Well, it depends on who's supervised. We have some, like our GPS caseload, they cannot have any more than 25 people under supervision because it's an intensive caseload where you're sitting at your computer, monitoring comings and goings of offenders. So we try to keep them relatively low, but we have some of our probation agents have like 70 people under their supervision of various supervision levels. We have a system that we rate as security levels, basically. Some are high risk, and then we have our low risk ones where we really don't see those guys at all. Maybe once a month, or they might do a video call in because they're such low risk. Or where you have the guys, you might have a guy come in every week to see you because he's in a high risk category.
Thank you.
Commissioner Belknap.
Just one last question for me, Heath.
No worries.
On the 2023 drug testing report, so of the 294 tested positive, of the 2,200, do we know, how do we compare with other counties? Because that seems like a really good number for where we are.
Yeah, it's, we're relatively in the same boat. Most counties right now are seeing higher upticks with the methamphetamine. It's just so cheap right now and it's easy to get. So we're, in the same boat as like obviously Kent County, Muskegon County are gonna have higher numbers, but with rural communities, we're, like Allegan, we're sitting pretty close together.
Okay, so it is a little bit of a lower,
We're at a
we don't have
lower-
as much access to it, I guess, as maybe one of the takeaways from that
Yeah, we
statistic.
don't have the same volume that Grand Rapids would have or Lansing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we are on item 10, public comment. This is the second opportunity for the public to address the board. Couple reminders, you have 3 minutes to address the board. If you could please state your name and jurisdiction when you begin, that would be great. And address your comments to the chair. Welcome.
Thank you. Karen Obit, Spring Lake. Relative to the interim administrator appointment sausage making process we observed here today, one thing that was transparent to me was the desire on the part of some of the commissioners to make what is in effect an invaluable contribution to a declared candidate's campaign. Also clear to me was the desire on the part of some of the commissioners to inject into public discourse here today the false narrative that media coverage of these meetings is to blame for the polarization and politicization of county governance. What I have witnessed is that this polarization of our county government, effect of our county government actions, is a direct result of controversial decisions this board has made. Controversial decisions that draw the legitimate scrutiny of local media, whose role it is to inform residents about their local government's actions, shed a little sunlight, if you will. As for the concern expressed by several commissioners about the morale and well-being of our current staff in making this appointment, it seems to me that the best way to ensure stability and a sense of security among staff would have been to make an internal appointment of a well-qualified, well-respected employee. After all, county staff has already endured the upheaval resulting from the lack of transition that resulted in the abrupt firing of Administrator Shea in this board's appointment of John Gibbs, only to see Deputy Administrator Waterman depart months later due to what he referred to as difficulties in working with Gibbs, followed then by Administrator Gibbs being walked out of the door by this board months later. In my book, that all was an undue and unhealthy amount of upheaval, which you could have avoided compounding had you appointed Karen Karazinski or Paul Sachs. If this is your concept of transparency, it certainly does not match mine, which is why during the course of each contact I initiate with residents in this county on behalf of candidates I'm going to be supporting, I will conclude with this. Let's bring transparency and good governance back to our County Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
David Moore in Allendale Township. First, I'd like to thank publicly Commissioner Ziles for removing D, E, and F from the consent agenda. I appreciate that. The conversation that pursued I appreciate it also. A little bit of things I would like to clarify. Well, some of the land may not currently be farmland. Most of the land was farmland. So yes, it has been confiscated or purchased or whatever by either state or the county or whoever, but it was farmland. And farmland is not just cropland that you can grow corn on. It is also pasture and hunting land. I find it interesting that infringing upon one guy who bought on the end of a dead end road to have hunting land and property for him and his family and his kids to spend time together. Now currently the township or the county will be providing a path to bring more people into this area and infringe upon his right to hunt. As far as item D is concerned, you're adding heat and you're adding or changing rooms. Why do we stop there? Why don't we add showers, a bike wash station, air conditioning, a restaurant, valet service? Where does it end? I'm not laughing. And then I find it interesting, what does it take to get a light on M45? The people of Allendale have been wanting traffic controlled for a long time. What it takes is a bike path. Amazing. And then you're going to put it on 60th, which going south does not even get to Fillmore. The logic is beyond me. And then I'm going to explain to you why I don't want a bike path in my neighborhood. I currently have a college in my neighborhood to where some of their students believe it's okay to ride their motorcycles out in my field and tear it up and destroy it. And at least this time the Justice Department decided to prosecute. But here's what happened. He was found no motorcycle license on the bike, no registration, no insurance, no motorcycle endorsement. So they fined him for all those fines and court costs. Guess how much damages was reimbursed? Or how about the guy on the ATV who went out my soybean field and tore it all up from the subdivision? Or he claims his kids stole, neighborhood kids stole it. How much retribution was paid there? None. There's so many better ways to spend this money for the community than to put a bike path in and make it paved so that people don't stub their toes. You serve all the people, not just a small percentage. Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hello, Dina Arner, Holland Township. I guess I'm not surprised that you lived up to all my high expectations in your hiring process. There apparently was no communication with the HR department, which literally exists for this purpose to help vet new employees and find them. There was apparently no outreach to the Talent and Recruitment Committee, which exists for this purpose. All there was behind the scenes conversations between the commissioner and individual other commissioners, which is a cute way to get around the OMA. And again, not surprised at all. It would be nice if we could return to regular order, which means that employees are vetted, there is a general call out within the community and outside the community to search for proper people to fill these positions. We'll be watching to see what happens for the actual commissioner, to see if this is another behind the scenes in the cloakroom decision, or if there actually is compliance with the Open Meetings Act to choose someone for such an important position. As far as going with someone outside the county structure, we now have a interim commissioner who has not worked in the administrator's office, who has not worked, as far as I can tell, anywhere in this building, who does not know the people involved, who does not know the structure of meetings, who does not know the paperwork requirements. So, oh goody, we get another adjustment period like we had at this time last year. Thank you so much for paying attention to the norms and not even realizing why we have norms. People smarter than you have been doing this job for decades and have figured out the best way to do things. But I'm sure you all know better with your vast 14-month experience as commissioners.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Welcome.
Hello, Christy Maplink from Zealand Township. I just want to add a little comment that Miss Sarah Leach from the Holland Sentinel put a commentary out saying that I said the media never investigated the issue with Vanessa, and that I don't know if she saw the story, but we did report on it. I did see the story. My point was that they've not dug deep into prior things that have happened in the county. I think if you took this story now and you inserted something that happened currently with Coleman or Jack Jordan, and you had that name in there instead, the story would be completely different than the story that was reported back in that day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Yippee, I get to be last.
Welcome.
Maybe. I'm Jim Kuiper, Holland Township. I came a little bit late today for that, but I missed a few things, but I was here long enough today to come to another realization about the diligence and expertise that you bring to this table as commissioners. I appreciate you. I think you're in a tough spot. You get a lot of comments, not all positive, obviously. And that's okay, so long as people remain respectful and remember that we are all people here to fulfill the mission that God has given us. As I mature, as I season, I become more aware of the responsibility that I have to use my best efforts to promote the values that I have grown up with, that have become a part of me, and the things that I want to pass along to all of my future generations and your future generations, your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and all future children. And the important thing that I can see that rises to the top from all of this is that we each have a mission. God has placed a mission on each of us, and I applaud you for pursuing the mission that God has set before you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Sorry, Mr. Kuiper. I'm Rebecca Patrick, Allendale Township. The one thing that I would like to ask this board to think about is that you can still do everything that you've done here today or everything that you want to do and not get the backlash that you get regarding the process that you use. For example, you could take more time and involve all the commissioners when it comes to putting out information. That would cost you at most a few days. You could notice things a little bit earlier and involve a process that involved, for example, has been mentioned, HR, or involve a process that opened up the idea of opening up this position to other interested county residents who might have the qualifications for it. It would cost you nothing at all. And it would engender public trust in the processes that you use. And that is the issue here, is that when processes are abrogated or not used or not transparent or not given due thought, the result of that is people do not trust you. And you have the votes to do what you want. Everybody realizes that, but government is different than private sector, and process is as important as the final decision when it comes to what government does. And so I'd ask you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
There's one individual online, Mr. Chair. That is Megan Ryan. And Megan, if you could just unmute yourself, you have 3 minutes and state your name and jurisdiction.
All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Megan?
I can hear you.
We
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Megan Ryan from Holland Township. Happy Sunshine Week to everyone. Sunshine Week is a time set aside every year to talk about the importance of open government and transparency from our elected officials. While this board likes to speak about the importance of transparency and highlight any steps they've made in that direction, there are still many ways in which you could improve in this area. One way is something the majority of you promised to do before you were elected, but you still haven't followed through on. Everyone who signed the Ottawa Impact Contract agreed, quote, "I will support a county resolution that instructs the county administrator and corporate legal counsel to take steps to make county information public by default to increase transparency and accountability. Private information should be the exception for public servants," end quote. Yet here we are on your second Sunshine Week in office, and this resolution has never appeared before the board. A recent lack of transparency came when the option to submit online public comments disappeared from the board's webpage. In February 2023, the board asked the administrator and corporate counsel to come up with a policy for these comments, and that policy has not come before the board yet. Still, someone decided to remove the option from the county website. Who decided this and how? Another example was at the finance meeting last week. Commissioner Curran attempted to get an update on Ottawa food on the agenda to inform the public. In response, other commissioners alluded to discussions and plans for the April meeting, but they wouldn't agree to even discuss putting the topic on the agenda, keeping the public in the dark yet again. Also, the way candidates for the interim administrator role were compiled has not been transparent. Today's packet did not include any names, but the chair had already come up with a list and chosen his favorite from among them. His website alluded to feedback from others for qualifications and specific individuals, but whatever process he and other impact commissioners used to gather names and feedback was not done in public. Then there have been times when the chair has been opposed to transparency, such as when the health officer informed the public what would happen to the health department if certain budget proposals were approved, or when accusations against the administrator were made public before an investigation was complete. Well, I guess the chair was only opposed to that in May 2023, because he went ahead and did the same thing himself in February 2024. Even if you feel you have made improvements over the previous board, there is still much work to be done. It is time to let the sun shine on Ottawa County government. Pass your original transparency resolution, make your decisions in public, release information to the public in a timely manner and with consistency, not just in ways that serve your purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Do you have an additional online public comment, Mr. Chair?
All right.
This is from Joe Spalding. And Mr. Spalding, if you could just unmute yourself.
Oh, I
There
appreciate
you
it. Yeah. Hey, this is Joe Spalding. I am in Holland Township. Really briefly, I've been streaming this meeting on Facebook and on Twitter. The Twitter stream now has about 3 or 4 times as many views as your YouTube stream because you turned off comments. It's really, really, really abhorrent to the First Amendment to be doing that. And then to turn off the avenue for online public comments as well is also a taking of the rights of every individual in this county. So that's why they're now, getting this stream from my Twitter account. That's at beyond_process. Or I've been linking those Twitter streams now to stopottawaimpact.com. So if anybody wants to easily connect people to these meetings and have a conversation with me and a few thousand people on Twitter, they can do that very simply by going to stopottawaimpact.com and they'll get forwarded directly to that video. So I guess I should be saying thank you for the increased audience.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board in person or online? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for everyone who provided information and feedback for the board during public comment. I guess I'd like to thank the board for, again, enduring being called things like dangerous, stupid, vindictive, scoundrels, and fools. That is not what you are. I'd recommend that you be encouraged, and I'm thankful for the work that you're doing for Ottawa County. All of you. Next up is additional business. We have an update from the board chair. And so I'll see how quickly we can get through this and we'll be done. Ottawa County is an amazing place with wonderful people, great jobs, low unemployment, economic growth, strong churches, thriving communities, and people who love freedom. I want to share 4 updates with you. Number 1, we have an update on the county bond rating. In great news for citizens, on January 12 of 2024, Moody's assigned a AAA bond rating to Ottawa County's bond issuance, which is the highest possible rating. This continues the county's excellent AAA bond rating and reflects the county's strong financial position, which we also heard about today. Counties with a AAA rating can get lower interest rates for projects, which saves taxpayers money. Ottawa County has strong operating reserves, and the county savings remains solid compared to national peers. Over the past year, local news outlets like MLive, the Holland Sentinel, and the Washington Post, among others, have published articles falsely claiming and insinuating the county would lose its AAA bond rating due to reforms made by our conservative Board of Commissioners. I'm thankful for the county's strong financial position, conservative board, and capable staff that have all worked to continue to make good decisions for good governance and fiscal conservatism. The AAA rating is the highest possible rating, and we should continue as a board to promote policy that will support financial stability and minimize debt. Speaking of financial stability, that's number 2. Ottawa County is very financially stable. We're blessed with a stable local economy and conservative fiscal management. The unemployment rate is around 2.5%, which is one of the lowest in the state of Michigan, and we should be very thankful for that. For fiscal year 2024, the county budget is about $264 million. As reported in September of last year, the county had over $200 million in investments. Other financial highlights include the $6 million plus settlement in funds that the county received last year, and the remaining $4 million in board initiative funds, which is yet to be seen how those will be used. The insurance authority also maintains a large balance of reserves of over $30 million. And fiscal services has been hard at work on the annual audit, which will be released sometime soon. And when it is, we'll share more information and other highlights with the public at a future board meeting. Number 3, county debt, worth mentioning briefly. The county's leverage ratio is low and it's maintained consistently, and this helps us remain financially stable. And it helps maintain a AAA bond rating. Ottawa County's assessed value in 2023 was about $21 billion. And so what that means is the debt carried by the county currently is only 7.5% of the actual allowed limit that the county can have. Low debt helps keep an excellent bond rating and boosts our financial position. So that's great. Number 4, legal costs. An article was recently published by local media comparing the county's legal costs in 2022 to 2023. Unfortunately, the comparison ignored the legal fees paid by the insurance authority in 2022, which was about $225,000. I'm not sure how you could compare costs between years and leave out $225,000. This created a misleading and unfair comparison, in my opinion, to the detriment of the county, because $225,000 shouldn't be ignored. I emailed and asked the reporter if he did his due diligence and if it's acceptable to exclude important facts under the latest journalism code of ethics. The reporter replied and confirmed he had decided not to include the information because it would take time to request it via a FOIA. I also mentioned in my email to the reporter that part of the reason for legal fees in 2023 were the lawsuits against the board. For example, the board was sued by the former chair of the Michigan Democratic Party. I want to set the record straight on one of the narratives that I have been hearing. In the past, Ottawa County relied on legal counsel for mainly one person. People and reporters have conveniently forgotten to mention the insurance authority when they're talking about costs and expenses. I requested information about how much the county had paid and the insurance authority had paid the prior corporate counsel, Silver and Van Essen. And the amounts that I got from fiscal services were $460,000 in 2020, $417,000 in 2021, and $328,000 in 2022, which is an average of $400,000 per year. The current board has prioritized excellent legal services from one of the best constitutional attorneys in the state of Michigan. In my opinion, the best. We now have several attorneys working to serve the county board, the staff, and most importantly, the people of Ottawa County, instead of just one person making $400,000 a year. Our new corporate counsel has worked extremely hard to resolve deficiencies and put new processes and standardized contracts in place. This is done to protect Ottawa County and our residents. With a county of our size, with a budget of $264 million, our legal costs are actually extremely reasonable. Having the best constitutional corporate counsel is a priority for the board to protect the county and citizens. Since Attorney General Dana Nessel came into town in 2022 and reportedly advised Democratic activists and prior and continuing board members to engage in lawfare and recalls against the new board, I'd say hiring Coleman Legal was a fortuitous decision. So in closing, I hope this review about the county bond rating, our fiscal stability, county debt, and legal costs was helpful. The future is bright in Ottawa County, and together we will continue to be guided by our county vision statement, where freedom rings, and do everything in our power to secure the blessings of liberty for our children and our grandchildren. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.